If you could hide a color in the twinkling of an eye, and then continue onward with that same speed to fly, do you think that you could ever, through all eternity, find out the generation where gods began to be? Or see the grand beginning, where space did not extend? Or view the lost creation, where gods and matter end? Methinks the spirit whispers, no man has found pure space, nor seen the outside curtains, where nothing has a place. The works of God continue, and worlds and lives abound. Improvement and progression have one eternal round. There is no end to matter, there is no end to space, there is no end to spirit, there is no end to race, there is no end to virtue, there is no end to light, there is no end to wisdom, there is no end to light, there is no end to union, there is no end to youth, there is no end to priesthood, there is no end to truth. It's monthly Mormon Mondays. It's time for the secret handshake. Tune in and race through the veil. It's time for monthly Mormon Monday.
Happy monthly Mormon Wednesday or Monday, whatever. I like the name of the show. We're never going to change it, no matter what day we actually do it on. So, let me just say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Thanksgiving, all the things, Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, and which ones of those do you celebrate? Are you even allowed to celebrate Christmas as a
Yes. Mormon? Well, I'm not one anymore, but yeah, they do all the things. Actually, their favorites are like the holidays, including Halloween. So
what about New Year's? Is any because you don't usually I associate drinking and champagne and stuff. Is it everything except for that? Did they substitute sparkling
Martinelli's? Yeah,
okay.
Martinelli's is a big deal, but they do actually go out of their way here to make fun like proms or whatever for adults that are like a dance and you go to it with no alcohol and they substitute food. And you can tell most of the time, but yeah, it's fine.
So we watched a movie called Heretic, and that's what we're gonna mainly talk about, just because it's an interesting movie. I don't know how much I care, if anyone even cares about like a critical review of it, because I have the worst taste in movies. Every one of my favorite movies has like 4.5 stars or less on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and all this, right? So I'm the worst judge of character for a movie. But how did you like it? Like, just talk about just the movie part.
Well, I liked it. I hated the ending, but I get why they did what they did. But I still thought it was a good movie. Yeah, they did a good job.
What about pre-Exmo Heidi? Let's say like you're in the thick of it, and someone just you're forced to watch this movie somehow. You're on a bus, right? You're on a plane, and like they're playing it, and you have no control over it, and you end up watching the whole thing. What do you think, like, your Mormon sort of impression of it would be?
How dare they? Clutching pearls for sure.
Would none of it sink in? Would any of it be like, wait a minute, that's an idea? Or is it just like, this is just Hollywood garbage?
Honestly, I would probably not have watched it. Like, we are notorious of Mormons as to start something like that. And if they see too many of the things, it gets shut off. So if you're on a plane, you take out your ears, you put in the scriptures, I don't know what, but you're not going to finish that movie. So,
Okay.
yeah.
There's hypothetical situations where you could, but they're all hypotheticals.
Right.
But so largely, it would just be like a movie that Mormons aren't allowed to see. Now, there's Mormon movie like editors, right? Or there used to be a whole company, and what they did was they would censor out like the non-Mormon aspects of the movies so that everything is essentially family friendly, I guess, right?
But this whole movie is so heretical, haha, heretic, that I don't think this would be on the list of let's fix it up and make it not cuss. Like Home Alone, they might fix it up and make it not cuss, but
Okay, so
this is a whole
something
bigger
that would just
problem.
it would take away too much or it would be too much effort. This one wouldn't make
Yeah.
the cut.
I just don't think they would have a plot left because of how much it's focusing on everything. But I will say this, whoever did this movie definitely heard about the Mormon missionary girls that visited Ted Bundy. I don't know if you know about that. They
I
did.
think you might have mentioned it. We're gonna have to get into that. I think you said like
Yeah.
save their life somehow.
Yeah, I think it definitely the rule about the wife in the room is a real rule. And I think it probably saved those girls' lives because the woman's supposed to be there. They're not even supposed to be in a room alone with a guy at all. They did so many mistakes there.
Is there and we'll trace through the steps of like everything that happens there. One other question, I guess, where we get right into is there any other movies that you're aware of that focus this much on Mormonism that would be kind of
Boy.
considered blacklisted?
I mean, they have lists of things that they don't want you watching, but if it's anything negative about, the church or the prophets, it's a no. So,
Okay,
eh.
I mean, I just can't think of any movie that was so specifically
Well,
talking about
out
Mormons
there.
versus any other, at least like a large production movie.
Yeah, I can't think of any right now. I mean, I will tell you this, they love them some Star Wars. Star Wars and Harry Potter are like huge in the Mormon community. Huge.
Is the Trey Parker like the South Park cannibalism?
Oh, we are
Is
not to watch the South Park, actually. That's a
any
no-no.
South Park?
The one about Mormons.
Okay, so that's on the radar. But what about the musical? Do you know about the musical they did before they even had South
I
Park as a
don't
show?
Yeah, but I don't know if they knew enough
It might
about
be
it
too
to
obscure.
outlaw it. Yeah, like it might not have happened, but maybe, they let them all know and let them know in priesthood meeting to lead their family in the correct direction. But yeah, they're pretty fussy about things if it's about the church, honestly. So, which
Yeah,
is
well, I've
funny because Harry Potter is like all about Joseph Smith, but that's fine.
I mean specifically or metaphorically?
No, metaphorically, of
Okay.
course, but like very interesting anyways, right? Like, I don't know.
I
Yeah.
think deep down, it would be impossible to remove the fascination with folk magic from Mormonism entirely. It would be like taking all of the oil out of your car and then trying to start it, right? It's part of the essence of Mormonism until it transforms into a completely different thing. But they just recently brought the hat out, right? So it
Right.
seems they're
This
still
has
in
changed. Yeah.
they're
Yeah,
they're too early to give it all up.
they did take all of the magical stuff. Like as a Mormon, I never knew about folk magic at all. At all. I never knew about Joseph's hat. I never knew about the stone. I never knew nothing. I knew nothing. I knew the parchments, none of it. Nope. They kept that
How
under.
quickly did all that get erased, do you think?
The internet just screwed them so bad. Like it's
So
so bad.
so they started
Yeah.
having to backtrack and cover it up, what, in, like, the '80s and '90s?
Yeah. I think possibly even that they may have known it was coming and they were pre-gaming it, which is my theory on the Mark Hoffman case. But I think that they have enough people in the CIA, I mean, which is verified, like not a joke, and the FBI that they would have had a pre-knowledge of it hitting. So yeah.
Well, I would argue, have the Mormons infiltrated the CIA, or has the CIA infiltrated the Mormons? It would be hard to really put your finger exactly on that, no?
Well, I think it's just like NASA. NASA's the same way. Who goes to space? Either Mormons or Freemasons. That's just the way it is. So you got to be on some level.
You're saying I
But
have a chance.
yeah, yeah, you got a chance. Way better than me. So
All right, I've got a quick like plot outline of this. We're gonna end up spoiling the entire movie essentially. Like we can't talk about it and not do that. But here's a spoiler, like friendly, I guess, overview, and then we're gonna spoil it after that. So
right.
the whole movie is about these two Mormon missionary girls. They knock on the door of this guy, Mr. Reed, and he invites them in to talk about religion. He kind of starts getting into like uncomfortable places, asking really specific, like gotcha questions at them, and then start talking about like some true religion. And when the girls realize something is definitely wrong, that the wife's not coming back in, they try and run away and they end up in this like dungeon area, and then it turns into sort of like a full-flown horror movie, and then it kind of ends in a weird way. I agree with you on that. We'll talk about that. But that's the general premise. These two Mormon missionaries go to some strange guy's house. He invites them in, and the door never opens again. Like they don't go back
They
out that door.
The missionaries would never cross that threshold. I'm telling you, per the church regulations, even if the one girl that's newer said, "Yeah, let's do it," the senior, they always put them with a senior one that's been in the field for a while, like a senior missionary, and then the newer one, the senior one would be like, "We're not going in there, girl. No, ma'am." And
Okay,
so
so here's some hypotheticals because you're the best person to possibly ask about some of this stuff. Did you do missionary work? Did you go two by two and knock on doors?
So I was not a 2x2er because I was married at 17. But I have more baptisms under my belt than most missionaries do because I was a date 'em and dump 'em.
You got
And
sucked in and not
I
jumped
got
in.
4. I got 4. Yeah, I got 4. That's a lot. So I regret it all now. But yeah, I regret it all now.
Okay,
So
look.
just saying.
So you probably knew people that did the two by two door
For
knocking,
sure.
door to door
Yeah.
sales. So hypothetically, they go into this scenario, and Hugh Grant lets them into the living room or whatever because they see like a lady in there, right? His wife is in the house. Does that like would you enter the house then? So
She would
what?
have to be right in the same, they are not allowed to be in the same room, and neither are the men with the opposite sex and not another person.
Well,
Like
that's what I'm
it's the
saying. If they were to knock on his door and he's like, "Hey, girls, I want to talk about religion. Here's my wife in this room right here behind
okay.
me. Come
Yeah.
on in."
Then yep, you go in.
Okay. Well, so in that case, though, he could have been pulling like a Psycho, where it's just
Oh,
like a
sure.
shriveled up body that looked like a wife, and as soon as they close that door, and this is what happens in the movie, is the lock just doesn't unlock. He's got this whole mechanism that's built on a timer, and the
So
door is
scary.
it's like hermetically sealed shut. The front door does not open as soon as they. So this could technically happen if he had a female accomplice as
Yes. If he has
the
an
one left
accomplice,
alone.
it would work. Yeah. If one of the creepy ladies got cleaned up, it would have totally worked.
Are there any stories about this? The like real stories that where this has
I
happened?
mean, there's been some issues with missionaries getting in crazy situations because they will go into some areas that are just whoa, but and one of the big rules if you serve a mission is if they serve you something to eat, you have to eat it because it's not polite in other countries. And sometimes they be eating some disgusting, like downright disgusting. They say even if you're gonna throw up, eat it.
Wow.
So
That almost sounds like a cheat code that we shouldn't be
ugh.
revealing to an
Right?
audience because
Ugh,
that's a rule
yeah.
that can be abused.
Ugh,
Hey, we just
so
made
bad.
these mushroom cupcakes. We just made these brownies, right?
Yeah, they gotta eat it.
You
I
want
don't
a
know.
THC gummy, right? If like they're not allowed to
Okay,
say no.
that's a little different, but if they're, like, in a very poor third world country and they made you stew of eyeball, you're eating that today. So
Did you hear any stories when you were growing up from people that had crazy encounters when they were doing missionary work?
I've heard about missionaries getting shot at, and my one, so I call him my other son. His name is Louise. Shout out Louise. He's in the Marine Corps now, but he lived right across the street from me his whole life. He was my son's really good friend, and he's just always, even still, he comes home for Christmas. He comes to my house, like it's just a thing, and everybody always calls it. He calls himself my brown son because they're not from here, so. So it's like a big joke. But anyway, he said when he was serving, because he served in a really bad area in Chicago. And so he's got his bike stolen a bunch. He's had like confrontations where people were trying to like fight them. Maybe that's why he's a Marine now. I don't even know.
The Chicago, I think we brought this up before too. And you mentioned the bikes, and you have to forgive me. I'm already going to go on the bike tangent, but just to recap,
oh no,
this, I want to make a name for it, like the bike paradox or something, right? But the ultimate question was, if you're a Mormon and they make you do missionary work, and I understand that they give you a bike, they assign you a bike somehow, but what if your bike gets stolen? What if it gets stolen 4 times, 8 times, 20 times? Like, at what point does the Mormon church say, all right, that's enough bikes, you're just walking everywhere now? And
actually, yeah, they have to pay for it after the first one, is what we read on that last time with the bike forum. I Googled it after we were done because I was like, what the hell is this answer? I don't know. And so I checked it out. Yeah. And the mom that wrote into Reddit, whoa, she was pissed because she had to pay for another bike.
Right. And this is like, they got their bike stolen a few times.
All the time.
And this is where the Mormons decided to send them. So it's not like they don't have access to these crime statistics that say, hey, you'll get your bike stolen if you live in this area. So long story short, yeah, we got to the bottom of that, and it surprised me a little bit, but now it makes a lot more sense that it sounds like going on a mission is almost like a upper middle class / rich family sending their kid off to some kind of prep school or a private school. Like, mom and dad are footing the bill. Even if the college gives them some kind of stipend or something, like, ultimately mom and dad are paying for everything. They wouldn't be going on that mission unless it was fully funded by mom and dad. And it sounds like originally it was supposed to be funded by the church.
Right. But this is actually something the Mormon boys save for their, so the whole time they're in high school, they have their mission fund, and normal mission boys like save up, or some will buy cars and sell it to go on their mission. And it is a strict across the board amount for everybody. And I can't remember what it was, but we looked it up. But it's no more for rich people than poor people, or vice versa. They make it just one flat rate. No matter if you go somewhere like Hawaii, that's super expensive, or like the inner, city somewhere in a crazy area, or like a poor third world country, it doesn't matter.
I think it's honestly awesome, the idea. Even if you remove it from the Mormon concept, right? Just as soon as you finish high school, to get sent off to some other remote place of the world. So it's almost like an exchange student program, except it would just be you living and working there for however long, and then you come back.
It's 18 months, 18 to 24 months. My husband put that the rich kids get to go to places like France and Italy because their parents paid more tithing. Actually, that is true, but actually I conjecture that that's so they can like meet with other people, like, and become young global leaders and involved in things that
like
it gives
tomato a little bit, though.
They get you involved in these things, and it's been actually noted that they run into or at these meetings just by chance with these like high ranking people or whatever, like, and they get like the in, right? They're going to get the in because they're there. So
there, and I mean, I guess your husband can respond to in the comments if he's got a good answer for this one too. Yes. Are there like ways that you flex? You're like, oh, I got sent here, and I don't mean like France or Spain just because it's nice, but like, I don't know, is like Uganda something?
Anywhere international is way more cool than. Do you know some missionaries from Utah get sent to Utah, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever, because you can't talk to your family, you can't go visit, you can't call, you can't do all the things. So you're stuck literally 45 miles from your family and you can't do anything about it. So yeah.
What if the area is saturated? Do they do any research on this to make sure they don't just send you to a Mormon neighborhood and now you're just
I
knocking on everyone's door? They're like, "We're already Mormon. What do you what do
yeah.
you want?"
Right, right. Yeah, no, they do. I think they send a certain amount of elders or sisters wherever the need is. I think they're pretty smart. I mean, for sure Mormons are smart when it comes to projecting things, right? Like look at their stocks. I mean, they're great at it.
If these two girls were to knock on someone's door and they were already Mormon, is there like a secret code word? So like, hey, I don't want you to come in here and waste your time. Go knock on that neighbor's door and convert them. Like we're already Mormon. Like, could
They
I
just
say
tell them.
if they came to my door and if I was like, hey, I'm already Mormon, you guys could go, or would they start quizzing me to make sure that I'm not lying?
Actually, they probably already know from your records because they get these phones when they go on their mission. I only found this out because of my other son. And he was like telling me we get these little phones and they don't actually call people, but they have like a folder because he was like a top missionary, whatever, that had the answers.
Is
Because
that
if
better
if
or
the
worse?
other
You mean bottom
right,
missionary?
no, yeah. Oh, I should have not put it that way, right? Like a boss, okay? We'll put it that way. So, um, oh, the male actor, let's see. Oh, the trailer for the male actor. Oh, I don't know. He's all right. He did have a sex scandal once though. But anyway, so he
In the
said there's like
90s.
all these answers in there. Like if somebody comes up to you and is like, I heard Joseph Smith was doing Solomonic magic, they like type in like, oh shit, Solomonic magic. And they like hurry and go to it. And then they're like, this is what you should say now. And so they have that. They have all kinds of ways to help like guide this along. But literally, those people don't leave each other's sides except to go to the bathroom and take a shower. Like they are always supposed to be in the companions, like right there by them. But if they're already members of the church, then it'll show in their church records, and I'm sure they have those. So if you said you were a member, all they would do is like check it with your address or whatever because it shows. But they already know.
Like right on the spot, would they be like, hold on, before you shut that door, I'm going to go ahead and look it up?
They might have already looked it up before they knocked on your door.
Mm.
They're very, very, very smart. Mormons, if nothing else, are smart at tracking people. So yeah, they'll know.
Would there be like, I guess, what's the chance that one of these girls could actually hold their weight? Because in this movie, one of them's kind of passive. You know, one of them seems like they're just along for the ride. They're not like reading anything outside the Book of Mormon. But another one, she kind of retorts a little bit when Hugh Grant starts making all these claims and referencing pagan gods and stuff. She kind of, without looking it up, because their phones don't work once they enter
Right.
his house, because it's got like lead walls, it turns into a Faraday cage. So she's like spitting knowledge on him that like, oh well,
Yes.
you said this, but it's really all this. How
Mhm.
many Mormons do you think would actually know all of those responses without having to look it up in a phone?
Not about those things, not very many. That girl
You're not
looked
even
like
allowed to know about that stuff, right? Or
no.
what?
That girl looked like she did and she had the are we ruining the movie yet? I don't wanna say unless
I
are
mean,
we
yeah,
can
go for it.
yeah,
I think
okay.
we're in the clear
She
now.
wouldn't have had the birth control, in her arm, nor would she have had the all black hair and looked very gothic-y. Like, that is not a look that we do at church. Like, we are all very, white and lights. And
I didn't
if
even pick up
you
on that she had her hair dyed. So you're watching
yeah.
it and you're like, oh, she's not
Mhm.
Mormon.
I'm like, "Oh, she's a convert." That's what you say to yourself. "Oh, that's a convert." So,
Is that
yeah.
is that second class Mormonism?
Well, that's kind of, and look at the other girl, right? She was very white and delightsome. She had the ash blonde hair. She looked more, she was more naive, but then in the end, she schooled. So, yeah, who knows? Yeah. And I don't mean white and delightsome like blonde hair. I mean like not fake, right? Like not dyed black on purpose and her hair was black. What's
Yeah,
up,
you could just
mom?
say Aryan. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, as it is. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Was Joseph
Oh.
Smith by definition white and delightsome in that way?
Well, there's a controversy here that I've learned recently that they say he might have been, his brother went to Dartmouth, but he went to the Indian college. How did he get in there? Right? Like, how did this guy that's supposedly very fair, they say Joseph was very fair and had blue eyes. How did that happen if their genealogy goes back to where some people say it does? And some people say that he was Native American. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I'm searching it out.
So in the scenario of this movie, the two girls get into this guy's house, and we kind of already acknowledged that there are hypotheticals in which they could be lured into this house in reality, and they find out the wife's not real or she leaves the room or whatever, but now they're trapped in this house. Are Mormon girls like even taught self-defense or like what to do? Like, are they gonna go for your jugular, like, put their thumbs in your eyes or something? Or do they know Krav Maga or anything?
I don't think they teach them that. I don't think there's anything about that. So, yeah, very strange. I mean, they send these girls out there and they're supposed to be somewhat protected. And I will say a big flaw was they would never be at a house that they didn't check in at. So they would have absolutely known they saw that guy where the one guy came and looked for them, but he was like, were they here? No, they had an appointment at 4:00 and I know they're here. And if you don't produce them, we're calling the police, is what that should have been. But he was just like, okay, cool story, bro. Like, and just left and was like, here's your pamphlet, join the church. And I was like, no, they're not going to send their sisters out like that because remember, a lot of these girls, are virtuous and different things. I mean, they want them to stay that way. So, yeah, bad
There
things
could be
happen.
a Barney Fife Mormon priest out there though that's like not keeping tabs the way that they
Could
should,
be.
right?
Yeah, it could be, but I highly doubt it because there's so many of them. It's not just one priest. Like it's like you've got your mission president, you've got your, Bishop Rick, you've got another guy. Like there's so many people keeping track, and so I don't think it would have just been one person showing up either. I think you would have had like 4 or 5 guys showing up,
Okay,
like
so the
produce the
Mormons
girl.
track their women like
Mhm.
they track their money a little bit, like
Exactly. Well,
everything's
yeah,
accounted for.
yeah, of course. Of
Okay,
course.
so
Yeah,
you
they make
don't
the new
lose your
members.
chips while you're at the casino unless you're a complete idiot, right? And you guys don't drink, so
Exactly. Yeah,
there's
we
no
gotta we
excuses
gotta
for
have them for more Mormon kids. I mean, we can't be
Okay,
losing the
okay.
kids.
So they get in the
Mm.
house and it's kind of like a slow build up process, but eventually you get the idea that this guy has been looking at every single world religion, and it
Mhm.
seems that and maybe you've got more insight on this, but it seems that he just picks them because they came to him. It wasn't like he was going out and trying to like find a Christian or find a Buddhist or find, a Hare Krishna guy at the airport and bring him back to the house. The fact that these girls came to the house and he was able to lure them in and trap them and all that, they kind of did it to themselves in a little bit. Like if they hadn't knocked on
I
his door, it
think
seems that this never would have played out.
Well, it was an appointment. Don't forget, it was an appointment, which means they had an appointment to be there because they were on their way to their appointment. And I think, in my opinion, he had it planned out to a specific day. He may not have had it planned out for the girls, like maybe he did just catch one or whatever. But I think the part on his end that was planned is he planned it on a day where there was going to be a storm. I think he planned that and he set it at the time and whatever so they wouldn't be able to leave easily, right? Like I think he did that on purpose. So, just my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually a really good point. I wouldn't even consider that he planned that part out because I just figured it's storm because it's a freaking horror movie, and every horror movie usually has a storm when something bad happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually did you get any so the conjecture I have is very strange from this whole thing, and we can get into it piece at a time or towards the end, but did you, see any parallels with Mr. Reed to anybody else?
Good question. I don't know. I wasn't really to be honest, the whole
Mormon.
time I was watching this movie, I assumed that this was actually Hugh Grant doing this. Like Hugh Grant came to America as this like hoity-toity British atheist slash, Euro pagan, and was doing this to kind of punish American bumpkins for being so stupid. But as I was watching the movie, I was like, "Oh, Hugh Grant has taken like a dark turn, but this is actually Hugh Grant.
Mhm.
This isn't Mr. Reed or anything." So I guess I wasn't comparing him to anyone else because I was watching it as if it was a movie about Hugh Grant.
So I feel this is a really big parallel, and this is why the church would be pissed about this movie to Joseph Smith, because he is telling them something that isn't provable that he says is true. He is keeping women there, not against their will, right? And he is trying to prove a miracle. And he's trying to prove what? That there's a prophet. So I felt like this movie was set up specifically to show parallels to Joseph Smith in the beginnings of the church, because he even
Interesting.
says, yeah, he even says to the girls, she's like, why do you keep them here like this? And he says, they want to be here. And then the other girl saying, like, she moved. No, she didn't move. What did you see? That isn't what I saw. That's very much all about the witnesses of the early church. I felt I saw straight through. I was like, okay, we've got water symbolizing baptism. We've got a church over top of the tunnels that were full of what? Satanic stuff. Very, very in the way of Catholics as well as Mormons building over tunnels and old pagan ritualistic sites. They are known to do this. And I've been to Italy a bunch and seen this happen. So when I saw all this stuff and then the games that they were referencing and talking about, like the Monopoly games, I think that it was just showing like the revamping of the Book of Mormon, because he said, this is the original, but it's not as popular as this, blah, 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 as this, blah, blah, blah. And that's what dinged me to say, oh, this is about Mormonism. This is about Joseph Smith. That's just my thought.
It's hard. Usually I push back and I'm like, you're just saying that because you're Exmo and you think that everything bad is about Joseph Smith. But I actually think that this is a really good take on that, because there are those the one thing that blocks it for me, and you could probably dispel it immediately, but wasn't Joseph Smith known as a lady pleaser? Or is that just propaganda?
Was he not pleasing the women? Were they there against their will? They weren't. He was not nice to them. But what did he say? He said they want it like this. They like it like this. And polygamy in general is what? It's kind of a diss on the woman. Like, you're not enough, so I'm going to go with 20 other girls. And it's kind of a hurtful thing, right? And he's hurting these women, yet he's keeping them. He's keeping them there with him. And they're there of their own free will. He said that over and over and over again. The thing that triggered me to think that this was kind of like aligning with Mormonism is when he set the Bible and the Quran and everything out on the table with the games and said, and this is the new one, and this is the new one, and this is the new one, and why is this one not as popular as this one, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, this is about the Book of Mormon.
That was honestly the best part of the entire movie, I think, is this analogy. And I don't even think it was particularly profound or anything, but it was just, I'm a sucker for analogies. Like, I looked forward to the blocks of questions on the SAT where it's like, a caterpillar is to a butterfly as a whatever is to, like, I liked those because that's the way that I guess I see most things and I relate to them. So this was
Right.
well done at the very least. If
Very
I'm not
much
going to say it
so.
was genius, but he shows this original version of Monopoly, and I'm not even sure what the original one was called, but it was made by
Yeah.
some lady, and I've known about this before. It's a really interesting concept that the very first version of Monopoly was made to frustrate you. It was made so that the bank wins every time, or that like the one person ends up becoming this mogul and everybody else has to go bankrupt. It's not a fun game. The original version was never meant to be fun. It was meant to teach people the pitfalls of monopolies and to make them dislike monopolies. It was weird. It was like a political teaching tool that looked like a game, but it was a game that wasn't really fun. So, but someone like an actual capitalist saw it and was like, "Oh, we can make a quick buck off of that thing. We just got to tweak this and tweak that, and now all of a sudden it's a
Mhm.
fun game." And you get Parker Brothers. So he was showing how this original thing that was like a painful, like it was torturous, but it had these deep messages woven inside of it. And then you have like a whitewashed, capitalized version that like has all the edges cut off of it, bright colors, some new shiny
Yep.
pieces. They turn it into something palatable. and they start selling that thing, even though it's based on something completely detached from what it is. And that's where he starts comparing these two versions of monopoly, all the way to like Mormonism. And he gets into all the different monopolies, like the digital monopoly go.
Right.
And stuff. It was kinda weird.
Bob Ross Monopoly.
Yeah, the
That
Bob
was
Ross
funny.
monopoly, or like the Wolverine versus Deadpool monopoly, all that. And he
Yes.
basically says that's Mormonism, the Bob Ross monopoly, or whatever like that latest, newest version is. I think the analogy still would have worked if they just talked about the old ladies version and then like the Parker
Right.
Brothers version. That's kind of what he was going with. But he goes from like the Torah to the Old Testament to the New Testament to the Mormonism, and it was a great analogy though.
Yeah, I thought it was done really well, and I also almost spit my Coke out and laughed when I was watching because she said one of them has a bird head, and I was like, did the Mormons not think Quetzalcoatl was a god for a while, or am I on the wrong page? Because they did. So
Well, she
I
did
just
have
was
access
like,
to the database
well,
though, so she
okay,
wouldn't have known
that's
that.
true. That's true. I was laughing though because I was like, I mean, well. But yeah, was funny nonetheless. I thought it was very well done, and making the church pews and everything like that, and transferring the key, all of the things I thought were really um important because and the part where she said it's a magic trick, and knowing what we know about Joseph and magic, right? And immediately when they said magic, I was tuned right into that. I thought, okay, they're definitely going down this road, and actually it looks good on the top. It looks good for the people. It looked nice in the church. It looked very respectable, but what was underneath really, pagan, satanic, weird stuff all under there. So, I mean, for me, it definitely screamed that. I did look it up on Reddit as well, and I'm not alone. There was a lot of Mormon people that felt the same way. So, I don't know. Maybe it's a Mormon trauma thing.
You kind of indicated the answer to this, but I just want to make no assumptions. Are there goth Mormons? Would you be kicked out of Mormonism if you started leaning goth, or would it? Because it just seems like a normal phase that any teenager would go through, Mormon or not.
If you are the parents of that child, you are going to have many distasteful looks. You are going to probably have talks with the bishop. You are going to go through a lot of things. I had one that definitely went through that, and it was a big topic of discussion all the time with my grandma. Yeah.
So
Don't buy her
Mormon
that.
shows up in
Don't get her
temple,
that. Yeah.
and they've got black nail polish on. Like what specific like rule are they violating?
They're not. They're not violating any, but
So
they're
couldn't you
not.
just, if you were
Yeah.
just being a tough little shit, you're like, I'm not doing anything. You know what I mean? The parents are like,
Right.
you have to stop wearing this black nail polish. Be like, show me where the Book of Mormon says I can't.
It's yeah, yeah, and that's exactly the answer you'd probably get from those kids at that point. But the parents are just going to say it looks bad. Like everything in the church, you have to understand. Like you don't buy the really expensive shoes for nothing. You're wearing them on Sunday. You might wear that plain Jane dress, but it might cost $400. I mean, they're very into what purse you have, what shoes you wear, what car you drive. Yeah, all of it. Yeah.
Are there
So
lots of rebellious Mormon teens in your experience growing up?
In my
Or
experience, it's my husband and I have had this funny talk, and usually what we see the most is kids that are doing the things they shouldn't do, still looking upright and perfect in every way. They're the ones that get the callings. They're the ones that are at the top of their line, like, oh, I'm the because they have presidents of even the kids' classes. Okay. So if you're a teenager and you're in the 13-year-old class or whatever, you've got a president over your class and a secretary and this and that. And so if you're not easily manipulated, I swear to you, they see it and remember, a lot of them are in the CIA. Whatever people want to make of that, it's the truth. And I think they might know which kids are easily programmable. But oftentimes those kids that make it into those things, like one of mine in high school, I got married as a virgin, all the things. I didn't do any of that stuff. And I remember this one girl, she always used to get called. And I was like, she is not delightsome. Mm-mm. And I knew Yeah, I knew. And I went to school with her and I was like, this girl. And sure enough, they're the ones that usually get pregnant. And she did. Yeah. I think she was pregnant by 15.
By another
So
Mormon?
who knows? They always give the babies away.
Hmm. Always?
Well, I would say 70% of, not nowadays as much, but when I was growing up, yes, it was highly encouraged. And the adoptions are handled by LDS social services. The adoptions are usually close to the maximum, like nothing you would ever see like nowadays or whatever. And it's like, oh, you'll get pictures until they're 8 years old and a couple letters from the parents, never the children, through an attorney. And then eventually when they're 18, things are released, but they make it very hard. Yeah. Yep. And Utah is a place where, as a nurse, I know this, many people fly here to give birth because of the adoption policy here is very quick. You can sign over very quick. So they would fly
You mean
people
if
here.
you want to give your child up to adoption, it's easier to do it in Utah?
Yep, faster. Maybe not easier, but it's quick. Like as soon as that baby's born, you can sign that baby over. Some places have like a 3-day waiting thing and da 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 da. They don't have that. Yeah.
What kind of kickback are we looking at on this sort of operation?
Right? Makes you wonder. I'm sure.
I mean, you're talking like you don't have to pay money, you get $50, you get $5,000. What if you got like Primo Baby?
I mean, extra white and delightsome baby. Who knows?
Mm.
No, they have their own attorneys and stuff though. So I'm sure it all goes into something called the Mormon Corporation. We know there's the LDS Church, but there's also LDS Corporation. So I'm sure it all is a arm of that corporation. So yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know all of that. And
Oh,
there was
they're
someone had a
over a
comment.
lot.
How is he keeping them there?
They want to be there.
It seemed plausible. It didn't seem like you'd have to make
Oh,
something
the
up for this to
girls. Oh
happen.
yeah.
So the
So
girls they get enticed into the living room. Like once they step beyond the front door and the front door closes, the camera, like the film, sort of shows that this door is not a regular door, and that there's all these weird like metal mechanisms. Like it is hermetically sealed. Even if you were to try and bash it open, this door is not opening. So yeah, they kind of do enter a dungeon, and then once they transfer from, I guess, the living room into what is supposed to be the kitchen originally, but once you get into the kitchen, it's just this weird room that has these other two doors, and neither of those doors go outside. We don't get to see an actual floor plan of this house, but it makes it seem as if once you go into that front door, like there's no way getting out. Like every other door or window is probably a facade to cover up that he's got this underground dungeon.
and there was
sort of.
like bars on the windows and yeah, like at the basement, there was like grates, big metal iron grates and all that stuff too, which was weird. But
That is
I
Masonic. That's actually a good point. That would be
yeah,
Masonic a bit.
yeah.
You gotta have the lodge room that has no windows, right? And then only one door that goes
Yes.
in and out.
And then it was weird too. Didn't you think that instead of ascension, they had to descend? Did you catch that? Like if you're talking in a parable, like they had to descend. So I felt that was kind of strange as well. But yeah, that's just in the parable part. So who knows?
Well,
Whatever.
and also he was definitely pushing all of these ancient concepts of gods, and usually you wouldn't learn about that kind of information
Mm-mm.
unless you went underground into some cave or something. That's kind of
That's true.
like he was basically initiating them into ancient mystery schools in a way. He was
For sure.
forcing them to. It was a non-voluntary thing.
Yeah, that's true for sure. And then I did think it was hilarious that there really was a pie because when they blew out the candle and focused in on it, on that blueberry candle, I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh man." And then I was like, "There's no pie, this guy." And then there really was a pie. That kind of made me laugh. But I also wanted to know if you caught who the statue was. I wanted to find out who that statue was because they come around that corner and there's that statue there. I'm certain it's got to be like
No,
it's got to
who was the statue?
no, it went too fast. I gotta figure it out, but I'm sure it's meaningful. They wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have focused in on it like that, I don't think.
That was one of the details too, and I guess it was there for the audience because
Yeah.
if he had just a female sort of co-conspirator that was in the room that would get him in, but what happens is they knock on the door, and the guy's by himself, and they're pretty adamant, like, we can't come in unless your wife's there. And he's like, oh, she's just in the kitchen, she's making a blueberry pie, and I guess they can smell it. And you find out later, like pretty soon later, that there's just this blueberry pie candle that's burning in there. And that's when they realize, like, uh-oh, like he was lying about having a wife basically the entire time. But that was, I mean, that was planted there so that the audience gets to put it together too, like before they explicitly state it to these girls. But you're saying there was a blueberry pie.
There was a blueberry pie, which was funny because he actually asked them. He said this. He said, okay, do you want me? She said, can you go ask your wife again? And he said, do you really believe there is still a wife there? Because if you do, I will go ask her. But if you don't, because I put the blueberry candle out and da 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 da, he said, I did it on purpose. And I was like, that's interesting, because there really was a pie and there really was a woman. And she said, no, I don't believe there is. Right. So he's already causing self-doubt when in actuality, the truth was, there really was a lady and a pie. And so I was like, this is just a mind F all the way around. But I did find the statue. It's Giordano Bruno. And that was a monument to an executed heretic in Italy. So
yeah, me and Gio go way back. I think he was into alchemy too.
He probably, I'm certain he would have been, because oftentimes when we talk of Joseph, there's some books called like The Refiner's Fire about Joseph. Like there's some interesting things there with alchemy, and we know about the magical end of it. I mean, it's not a
this
secret.
Is the part that sells me on Mormonism. Like once Mormonism fully embraces the folk magic origins of its religion, I feel that they might get a bigger influx. It's just that they don't want all of the like the hippies that are currently obsessed with crystals and dream catchers yet. But if the demographic were white and delightsome, that we're all into constellations and astrology and stuff, they might open that up. They might be like, guys, we got if you're looking for magic, we got magic. They just don't want all of the dirty hippies with the patchouli to like flood the temple, I assume.
My mom loves patchouli. I think she's still watching. That's so funny. I myself cannot. It smells like dirt. But regardless, I think you're right in a way. But I think the big change is when Brigham took the church over, right? He took it in a very corporatized situation. The first thing he does after running for his life, he's running for his life to be a polygamist in the middle of nowhere, is contact the government to help them build the railroad. And then they open a sugar company. And I'm like, this doesn't seem too hidden to me. And then what does it do? It forces the polygamy out through what? The government, because the people weren't going to stop on their own. They weren't going to do it. They weren't going to do it through a profit. They weren't going to do it in general. They weren't going to do it. So to bring that level in, I think, in my opinion, they worked very hard to get that out. And by the time we get to George A. Smith, we're talking about a relative of Joseph's, and he makes it on Time magazine. It's his nod that we're playing ball, because he was in the Rotary Club. He was a Mason. He's the bloodline of Joseph. And they become what? They become corporatized. They become quote unquote normal. You know, that's what they wanted to be seen as. And why did they fit in the CIA so good? Because you have to wear a suit and a white shirt to church. Like they follow rules from a very young age, and they have to keep secrets and I mean, it makes sense, you know.
It does make sense, which is why you're a little bit crazy for leaving all of that, but we're past that. I realize that we're not I can't resell it to you as a non-mo, right? You already know all the secrets.
Yeah, I know all the secrets, and I just think, well, that's not for me. But the biggest thing with the churches that I have is, why don't they stop lying about it? Why don't they say that the Elohim, because it's a plural situation, and they call that their God, they'll fully say that. So why do they hide it all, right? Like, stop it. Stop hiding it until you get to this full level of Xenu, like we've talked about, and start making it about what it was supposed to be about, right? But then if they do that, they have to bring back polygamy. And I don't think they want to do that. I think it's messy. I think there's a lot of people that just look down on it, even if you wait till everybody's consensual and of age and all of that, right? We've still got a problem
how
here.
true is that? Because I mean, I guess it doesn't make sense to me. It seems that like right now, modern Mormonism already proves that you can have Mormonism without polygamy. So can't you just add all the other magic stuff and planets and everything and just not include polygamy? Or
He
like
was threatened
why does
by the tip
polygamy
of a
have to be
sword.
there?
He was threatened by an angel with the tip of a sword if he didn't
So,
do it. So
so he
it's
was
like
forced to do polygamy by an
that,
angel?
that's what he said. I didn't know you didn't know. Yeah, that's what he said.
I just thought it was more of like, hey, it would be really good if you did this because of these
No,
reasons, not you
N-
have to do this or I'll
no,
chop your freaking head off.
it was, you have to do this, you will do this. And actually, the FLDS people, that there's many factions of them. Multiple factions believe they're descended straight from Jesus Christ, and they think there's a Holy Grail type situation where Mary Magdalene and him had babies, and Jesus was a polygamist. And so, to keep their bloodline pure, they all intermarry. They're called the Kingston Group. And they marry their brothers and their uncles and their cousins, and they've got some serious issues because of it. Or we've got the FLDS, who they're all pretty much related anyway. Like, I mean, really, like I talk to many polygamists and I'm like, oh, do you know my sister's ex-husband is Warren Jeff's nephew? And I'm like, do you know Isaac? And they're like, oh yeah, he's my second cousin, third time from my mom on this side and my uncle on that side. Like they're all they're all related. And it was known to the polygamists that you must have 3 wives or you do not go to heaven. Must. Not maybe, not you should. Required. So
Where does the
I don't
three
know.
number come from, Joseph Smith, or does that come afterwards?
No, I think it was all under this whole, DNC 132, and it gets into it with that's Doctrine and Covenants in the Book of Mormon 132, and it was all in a revelation to Joseph. So yeah, I mean, you can have your wives taken away and lose everything too. And so this happens all the time. They take their wives and they assign them. You can come home. What happened to my brother-in-law is he came home one day and all he couldn't do was build a sewer uphill. Okay, that's pretty impossible to do, but they wanted them to do that. And when he questioned about it, he was like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, maybe you can help me. He's very soft-spoken, extremely kind and nice. And when that happened, they were like, you need to drive home right now for questioning the prophet. And when he got there, his wives were gone and so were his kids. And he never saw them again for 8 years. And they kicked him out and they took his house because they own the land. You can build a house there all day long, but you do not ever own the land. Ever.
Wait, so the prophet specifically was like, build me a sewer uphill to somebody. Yeah. And when
but
the
do you
guy
know
couldn't
why?
deliver,
yeah.
Why?
Because they want their wives. He must have done something to slight one of them because that's his uncle, literally his uncle.
Oh,
and when
so,
this happens,
they gave him an impossible mission just so that they could set him up.
Yep. And then they took his wives. And when they took his wives, they kicked his dad out too and took all 12 of his wives. So
okay. I thought maybe it was like a inside joke about shit never rolling uphill or something. And he's
right.
like,
Yeah.
I'll show
They're
you.
like, no, it's really actually not going to work. And so it was an impossible feat, and they can try to earn their way back, but oftentimes it never works. Oftentimes, once they're out because they want to keep the wives for somebody else. It may not have even been anything personal to him or his family. They may just have had the prettiest wives. They may just have had the best wives. Like, hey, if you do this for me, I'll give you what's his name's wives over there. They're all bargaining chips, every single thing. And so are the kids.
Interesting. So. I wonder if there has to have been at least one Mormon out there that had 4 wives, and he was like, how do I get rid of these ladies? And then the Mormon church swoops in, he's like, no, stop, don't.
They just, what it is they just get more wives because then they only have to spend. So if you're like Brigham Young and they have 55 wives,
them, right? If they take away your 4 wives, you just make more wives.
No, you just get married to 55 of them, because even if you're sharing, there's only 30 days in a month. So you just stay away from the ugly wife's house. Like, oh, sorry, it's not your turn. And so then you just never go back. Yeah.
So this is the most tangential hypothetical, but we're kind of on this topic a little bit because you're talking about not just taking wives away, but taking kids away and stuff. So if a
Mhm.
Mormon has, let's say, 40 kids, they're being super Mormon. They got 40 kids, but the kids get taken away. Does that mean in some fine print that like when they get their planet, like their kids aren't going to be on their planet because now they're owned by another Mormon family?
Yeah, that's their dad. Like literally these kids are like told that's not your dad anymore. Like at all. Period. He's not your dad.
But does God, when they die, God's like, oh yeah, no, that's not your dad.
I mean, who knows
Like
with God.
what planet do you think they actually go to?
Oh my gosh. Well, they all get their own. I mean, so they're going to grow up someday and have their own planet and their own kids. So, it's all.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah.
But that almost seems like a weird philosophical quandary, right? Because if everyone gets their own planet, but your planet's also populated by your kids, but also your kids get their own planets,
I
is it
know.
just
It doesn't make
planets
a
all
whole
the way
lot of
down?
sense.
It
Yeah.
breaks down very quickly. After one generation, it stops making sense.
Yeah, I think that's maybe why they got rid of the Kolob, right? Because they're like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Get rid. And they're smart enough. Like, I will say this for the Mormon Church and the Mormon Corporation, even more so, they're not dumb. And I don't think Joseph was dumb. They like to say he was a dumb farm boy and he couldn't read or write. I'm like, but he was learning Hebrew. Perfect. Yeah, that makes total sense. Like, what are you talking about? These people are learned. These people were not always poor. Yes, they became poor, but actually, they were there in Salem where his dad was a statesman. And so, like, his dad's dad's dad was a statesman and had been for generations and generations back. And so, it's kind of, they got robbed in a bad ginseng deal. This is really what they say happened. And they took their money and then they were poor. So, I don't
I
know.
went to Salem a couple years ago and we got roped into one of those like absolute tourist trap attractions. It's like, we'll do the whole reenactment of the Salem witch trials. And you go into this big room, but really they just have these like paper mache statues in these different spots and they'll shine a light on one. And then they'll like turn it off and shine a light on the other side of the room. It's like, oh, okay, it's not a reenactment. You're just going to shine a light on a statue and read from. And I don't even think it was live reading. They just like someone pressed play and they went back to being on their phone or whatever for 40 minutes. But in that little like reenactment with super hard double quotes, they made a point of saying, and then this guy, it wasn't just like Joseph Smith's ancestors were just in the room at the time. They were like,
They were the accusers.
yeah, they
So
were like
I'll read this.
foundational to the Salem witch trials.
Let me read this for you guys. So, Samuel Smith of Boxford, who accused Mary Eastie of witchcraft. Samuel Smith was Joseph Smith's great-great-grandfather. Another accuser, one John Gould, who accused Sarah Wilds, was Samuel Smith's father-in-law. So it is literally his family. We're in the Inquisition end of things. Like, yeah.
What are the chances?
I think this. If you want to hide something and you want, like they always say, if somebody blames you for cheating, they're cheating because, right, they gaslight. So I think that Samuel Smith most likely had some secrets in his closet. So he was like, Mary did it. And I just think that's what he did. Right. Like,
right. Because the folk magic would have been
Mhm.
passed down through the generations, just like the
Yep.
stones and the hats and everything
Yep.
else. Right. Okay.
Yep. So I think
I
that's
never heard that take on it either. That's a great, he was like, they're looking for wizards out here. He's like, she's a witch. Like
that
what
girl right there, she is a witch.
and then you can make that argument, like, come on, priest, father, statistically, what would be the chances if she's a witch that I'm also a witch and like we live next to each other? There's only going to be one in this town, and it's definitely her, and it's definitely not me.
Yeah. And also her friend. And he gets somebody else to do it. He's like, father-in-law, you say that one, because that they're probably both up to their eyeballs in it. And they're like, oh, because Lumen Walters if you remember, our magician, right, that was probably Joseph Smith's mentor in many ways, Luman Walters was Emma's cousin. So it's not just by chance. And he was the one that came back godless and a heathen and blah, 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 blah from, France, which is why I started studying Martinism. Because I'm like, this just seems a little too easy to just go with the Scottish Rite, which me and you have talked about. And I'm like, it's just too easy. It doesn't fit. They don't practice Solomonic magic. Do they learn about it? Sure, great. They're not practitioners, whereas Martinism is. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And the official story, I guess, that I've heard was that the Salem witch trials, it was because one of the servants to Tuba came from like another country and brought their sort of Phoenician turned African sort of folk magic with them and taught it to these girls because they were raising the girls, because the mom, why else would you have a servant if not to just raise your kids for you, which is kind of how it still works. And they pick up on this folk magic or whatever it is. And I hope I'm not misquoting this, but I'm pretty sure that it was a Peter Lavenda in his like grimoire series, but he mentions that they might have actually learned real magic in the sense that they knew how to go into altered states, and like maybe from the outside world it would look like a seizure, or it would look like these cases where people will laugh hysterically for hours on end or go into these trances, and that somehow these girls were tapping into this ability to go into trances, and that's what was freaking everyone out. It wasn't just like a random, oh my God, there's witches around, let's start looking for witches. Like they were actually doing something quite weird that made everyone kind of freaked out a little bit. And ironically, Tatuba I don't think she ever goes through like the witch treatment. She actually runs away. I think her husband maybe gets caught up in it or something, but she kind of gets away scot-free out of this entire ordeal.
Well, and there's other people that say she was Native American. And so, I mean, who knows? But I do know this is that the whole thing with Martinism getting their magical practices from Haiti, because he went on a trip there, right? This is so very, parallel.
I didn't know that. No, I'm not as familiar with Martinism.
Oh, okay. So Martinism, Pasquale and all these guys. Anyway, one of them went, I think it was Pasquale that went there, and he found out from Haiti all these like magical practices, and that's where he put it in. So it's interesting to me that, Tituba, she was like all in on it too, and like it's almost the same thing, except she gets away and he dies. So I mean, I don't know for sure, but I do know that Mormons are fascinated with ceremonial things. There were obviously ceremonial situations going on, but let's not forget the Druid history of many of the early settlers that were Mormon, because the first Book of Mormon ever done outside of the English language was Welsh, because there were so many of them. So there's a big history there, and plus the Salem stuff. So maybe it was a lot easier for them to be like, well, yeah, that's what we do. That's how you do it.
But plus, it's not even exclusive to Mormon. And I think we got into this when we did the episode on like the history of folk magic and Mormonism, but at a certain point in America's fairly recent history, since we're still pretty young relatively, but early on in American history, you had all of these settlers from all over the different world, and really they weren't by default Christian. They were all these like folk magicians, and they believed all sorts of weird amalgamations of their like remote sort of homes that they were more and more growing detached from. So it does make sense that Mormons scoop a whole bunch of that stuff up. Like, oh, folk magic, we got folk magic. It all kind of works in this. Yeah. And the other side of that were basically these roaming sort of tent churches, these like revival fly-by-night churches that would set up, and Steve Martin would go in and put on a big show and do like miracle healing, right? And grandma can walk again. Like they would do all of these things. And that was a way of saying like, hey, all that folk magic you guys believe in? Look, I'm doing it too. And I represent something a little bit more structured. Like you can actually put me into a category. I'm a Christian, or I'm a Baptist, or whatever, Pentecostal, I think. I don't even know what denominations. I don't think it were the Jesuits or the Catholics. They would have been like, whoa, you're not
No,
allowed to do.
no,
How much money did you
no.
pay that church to give you
Yeah.
fight again? You gotta pay me to get that. But it does seem that all of these Christian denominations, they were sort of like scooping up and converting. They were feeding off of that same play as the Mormons were. They were just like, our folk magic is righteous, and the Mormons like, no, our folk magic is righteous. And they kind of like split it up. Like whoever gets to the bumpkins that still believe in folk magic first gets to convert them
They
into their
win.
thing.
They win. Yeah. Well, and don't forget, they say Joseph Smith was really handsome. He had a way with women. Also on top of it, I
You could
think
say the
the
same about
whole,
Hugh Grant.
yeah, there you go. I don't know, not anymore.
Well,
But
90s,
yeah,
90s Hugh Grant. Well,
yeah, 90s
again,
here.
how good would Joseph Smith
Ah.
look now if he were 200 years old?
True, true, true. But here's the other part of it, right? Like we know this about Martinism. They actually channel and bring spirits down twice a year, once on the fall equinox and once on the spring equinox. And when did he get those plates and talk to Moroni? That's right, the fall equinox. And it was required every single year. Well, I also, and this I haven't told you yet, I also think not only was he involved in Martinism because it would go with all the occult practices of the time, right? Like we have to go with the time. I am 100% sure he was doing certain rituals, right? Like the Abramelin and binding himself with his protector angel, because have you heard what he goes by like later in code? He goes by Baruch El, like Baraki El. And if you use that in the Catholic term, it's not such a bad thing. It's a nice guardian angel. That's fine. But if you look at the demonic side on the Jewish end, woo, he's the one over lust. And that makes so much sense knowing what we know about horny old Joseph. I mean, and by the way, Hugh
It was a
Grant in this
blessing and
movie,
a curse. What do you want from him?
Hugh Grant in this movie when he says, "Ooh, I've never had a Wendy." So perverted. So perverted. They're sitting there talking about their favorite fast food and Burger King and a Whopper and blah blah blah. And he goes, "Ooh, I've never had a Wendy." And then
I
seeing all
didn't
those
even pick
ladies.
up on that.
And they were talking about the condoms at the first of the whole show, and pornography. That was very strange to set it off. It gave a tone, you know. It
But yeah,
did.
you knew that it was, well, also I guess part of it being just an A24 film, you knew that it was going to get creepy almost immediately. So it kind of ruins it just knowing who put it out, that it's going to. So I guess here's where the big reveal, like this is where the spoiler where you can't go back from, because right now it's just like, okay, yeah, guy lures these two girls into this house. Well, once they get into the kitchen, he uses the Monopoly analogy, and they realize he forces them to choose between these two doors. And it's another one of these impossible tasks. None of them go outside. He's letting them know, like, one of them goes outside. And it almost seems that in his mind, he rationalized lying to them because all they believe are lies, right? Everything that they know is lies. So he doesn't feel like he's doing anything different than what they already know. One of the girls picks one of the doors. Surprise, surprise, it doesn't go anywhere. And once she gets in there, he I don't know if he says that it's his wife, but there's a lady in there, and she looks rough. She looks like the girl from The Ring, kind
The
of,
Ring,
right?
yeah, The Ring.
So
Yeah.
she's in this room, and he mentioned, I'm gonna simplify some of this, but he says something like she's gonna eat, and she's gonna eat poison, and she's gonna die, and she's gonna come back to life. And do you know why
But
she's gonna come back to life?
pause
Because
right there. Did you find it strange that he used Belladonna? That was a good one. That was a good one. There is some meaning behind that alchemically. I thought that's not a normal drug that we use anymore. Like Belladonna, really.
I think it might. I mean, not the plan, but I'm pretty sure there's plenty of extracts that like seasickness and stuff, and like altitude sickness. I think the little patches you put behind your ear, I think some of that could be related to Belladonna. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I think the only time I've given anything with Belladonna in it, and this is going to be weird, but it's true, is a suppository called B&O suppositories, and they only give it to people that have had their prostate removed for the extreme cramping that happens afterward for cancer victims, or like when they have the rods in for radiology, because it's horrific and it causes like all this horrible cramping. So the only time I've ever in like over 20 years, over like 25 years of being a nurse, seen Belladonna is then. It's a very rare. It's super rare. So when I saw that, I was like, that's weird. I didn't get down the rabbit hole on it, and I should have, because it did strike me. I'm always listening. My son's always like, quit doing that. Quit analyzing everything everybody says. Quit analyzing everything.
I have to look it up just because I don't want to state what the active ingredient is. Atropine. Atropine is one of those and it says that other active ingredients in belladonna that have similar properties are hycosamine and scopolamine. And scopolamine is the patch that you put behind your ear for like altitude issues.
But belladonna in Italian means beautiful woman. So I was like, and who's he trying to seduce? I'm sure those ladies didn't look like that at the beginning.
And no, that's an interesting point, right? Because again, this is Joseph Smith using a pretty woman to so he lures these girls into this dungeon, and there's this lady in the dungeon that looks like the girl from The Ring, and he feeds her belladonna or something that has belladonna in it. And he tells them all this. You're going to watch her die, but you're going to watch her come back to life because she's the prophet. And all of that roughly kind of doesn't happen the exact way that he says it does. But she does eat this thing. She starts vomiting. She basically dies. They check her pulse. They start freaking out. And then there's more commotion. He comes back in, and then the lady is like awake again and moving around and doing things. And the girls start to piece it together. And because he's ultimately trying to play tricks on them, the whole time they're there, everything he does is kind of a lie in order to see if they'll buy the lie. And I guess that's what he's into, because the more lies they buy into, the more he feels like they're doing this to themselves. Like it's their fault.
Right. It's their choice
happening to them.
Well, this is interesting too. So it says belladonna means beautiful woman. In the Renaissance, women used to dilate their pupils with it, and it causes you to see things differently. So it's kind of weird. It can cause hallucinations, delirium, and to your point, back to Salem, seizures. So I don't know. Like, is he just trying to, mess with them enough? Like, who knows? Who knows? Is he really trying to kill the lady and or just make her sick and get her out of there? Like, make her seem like she died.
Well, and scopolamine was one of the very first drugs that the CIA started experimenting with in MK Ultra, and they deemed that it was just too unpredictable, and it put people into this state of fear and panic that was really hard to break. It's hard to get useful information or get them to do a useful action on this particular drug because of how it would make people react.
I just found something. Legend has it that witches of the late Middle Ages, once again, we're back to witchcraft and my whole thing about that, it's Joseph Smith, would use belladonna with wolfsbane, and he specifically mentions wolfsbane as well in that pie.
I mean, not to be crass, but the most I guess crude version of that is that they would rub it on broomsticks, and then they would ride the broomstick without wearing any pants on, if you get what I mean. And then that's what would break the blood-brain barrier or whatever. It would just go directly through a mucous membrane into their bloodstream so that they could dose themselves constantly and go on these trips and feel like they were flying through the night and cackling and doing all the things.
But where we know that Joseph comes from a line with witchcraft, very strange. I'm like, oh man, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Maybe another
the one-eyed man is king of the land of the blind, or whatever the phrase goes. But if you did live in this spot where everyone is into folk magic, but no one really knows where it came from, they're all disjointed. If you knew grimoires and you knew Solomonic magic and the books that they all came from and the authors and the lineage, you could sort of manipulate people because you know what their beliefs are better than they know what their beliefs are. So you can
absolutely
stage, all sorts of things happening that correlate to what they believe, and they wouldn't even realize how you're doing all this. It's almost like the Apocalypto movie.
Very interesting. Maybe he was trying to create something there because she did say the lady went off script and then it messed everything up. So it probably ruined whatever he was trying to
What did
do
she do to
there.
go off script?
He whispered at the very end of what she told them. Like she's like, and I'm gonna see blah blah blah, and she's all spooky, you know, and all raspy, scary. She said, "None of this is real." That was
Right,
what she
right.
said. So I think it screwed up everything for him, you know, as far as that goes. So, I mean, who knows?
So in your mind though, this is like one of like Joseph's wife number one talking to Joseph's wife number two, like as
It's
she's coming in, she's like, "None of this is real. Get out while you still can."
well, the girl kept making a point of saying like, "Oh, you know, it's not what I think," but yet I think he thought the brunette would be the hard sell. But she was just more like she was more fight than flight, but the blonde was actually really logical. And so I think he wasn't quite ready for that. I think he wasn't like thinking, "Oh, this girl," because she seems like a ding dong through the whole show. I mean, she really was like, "Oh, I never watched." If you notice when she says pornography, she says the pornography. Like they made her seem stupid, you know.
Mhm.
And oh, you know, does it mean they actually have big if it's this and that? Like she's talking about all those condoms and magnums and whatever. So she's acting really naive, right? And the other girl's like, whatever, you know, like the other girl's like over it. She's like, okay,
The other
yeah,
girl kind of comes across like, "I don't believe in any of this stuff either, guy." But like she doesn't
yeah,
outright say it, but she has that vibe to her.
yeah. And she wasn't the one that would have been typically easy to manipulate, but he didn't count on this girl being kind of smart. She was a little bit smart there. And so, like, when she said, I think you switched the bodies, I think that really screwed with him. I think he wasn't ready for a pushback like that. And then when she dumped the water and it all went to like the point in the floor because it follows down, and she has to do what? Dig, just like Joseph digging for plates, but like she's digging, you know. And I thought that was weird too. I'm like, this is weird for me. But then also, you know, I'm an ex-Mormon, so take it for what it is, you know.
So yeah, that was, I guess, the turning point of the movie when now she kind of takes the upper hand in a weird way when she identifies that that woman in this like dungeon, that's not the prophet. She didn't come back to life. That was not a resurrection. Like you actually killed a person and then swapped the dead body out with another person
Mhm.
that looked just like them. And that's what throws him off of his game, and they end up finding themselves in, after they dig in this like other little dungeon place where there's literal women in cages. And then he does like the James Bond villain thing where he explains the entire thing to her, just so that when she gets away she can sort of recount exactly why this all happened. But and this is when he says that he implies that he's been doing this for a while. He's got all these different women that are trapped in these cages. Are they
Mhm.
all Mormon? I wasn't really clear on that. Or is he
I
just
don't
trapping just
know.
any random
Yeah.
women?
I think well, remember he said they all wanted to be there, that they were there of their own free will. So I don't know if they would have been just Mormons, but he definitely wanted them to want to be there. Right. I think he was a little bit trying to trick her to want to be there only because he's like, I never had a Wendy. And I don't think he was really interested in the brunette, to be honest. I think this was about obtaining his next big win. And I think that was her. So, and also he didn't have any women. I mean, honestly, they were there for a long time looking like Howard Hughes, but they all had long hair and the brunette didn't have long hair, you know? So, I mean, just these little things that I saw, I was like, okay. And then him teasing her more specifically, like, oh, what about when your dad died? You know, like he was messing with her the whole time. Like, really? I mean,
See, and I guess because I grew up Roman Catholic, but when he started going off on his monologue in the little dungeon, I was almost thinking that he was even criticizing like nuns or someone that would willingly, sign themselves up for that sort of like a subjugation in a way.
sure. I think it could be applied for sure. I think it was more about when he said, what is the true religion? And she said, control. And I think that was a nod and a hat tip about Mormonism as well, or any religion that has so much control. Like that, they made a big deal about her magic underwear, right? And depantsing her. Everything that was kind of humiliating and weird kept happening to the blonde. Everything. Like making fun of Lou Gehrig's disease. Like when he was like, "Oh, I thought you said blueberry disease." Remember? And so he was like laughing about it, but like the other girl was like, "Cut your shit." You could tell she was just like, "Eh," you know. But the blonde was just constantly kind, nice, blah blah blah. You know, she
And I guess
never was.
that's one of
She was
those things.
compliant. She was
It,
compliant. Yeah.
well, it's hard in retrospect too, because if she were that smart, if she knows that they're switching the bodies and they know all these different things that he's saying that he's actually wrong about and have all these retorts, they wouldn't have went in that front door, right? There's no way they would have went into that front door.
I don't know, because what do you desire most? They're desiring most to get a baptism, and she hasn't had one. She was really upset about that. So that's kind of a nod to, I have to prove myself to my parents. I have to prove I'm worthy. All those things, because they're spending all this money to have me here.
So when it comes to the Mormon missionaries and getting your baptism body counts and all of that, and I know you still like to, even as an ex-Mormon, you still like to brag about how many people you did convert when you were a Mormon. So apparently you guys hold that pretty, but I guess to me as an outsider, it almost seems like caring about your GPA in high school. Like literally nobody, after you graduate high school, not a single person you ever encounter will ever likely be like, "So can you tell me what your high school grade?" Like nobody cares. They might care about your
After you
college
get in,
grade.
yeah, after you get into college, right? That's it. Like it's
Right.
all
No,
it's
no
useful
one
for.
cares about your high school record. You don't, unless you like murdered somebody, you probably don't have a permanent record outside of high school. I hate to give that secret away to all the teachers and principals, but it just doesn't, like, you might get a criminal record, that's permanent, but your high school record doesn't matter once you're out of high school. So isn't this the same with Mormon missionaries? Like if you converted 0 people or you converted 50 people, does that
You're gonna
really
lie.
follow you around? Or the Mormons keep
Yeah.
such good records? They're like, it says here when you were 17, you only converted 3 people. So now that you're
It's
40, they
gonna
still don't trust you.
It's still going to be a thing. Like, I will tell you this, men that do not serve a mission at all, like my husband's brother didn't go on a mission. Okay. And he always says
What a
he
loser.
felt weird. Yeah. Like that. Like he's like, oh, he felt weird because he didn't. And men that don't go on missions a lot of times are the guys that will marry a woman that's already been married, or marry a woman with a kid already, or marry,
They get the scraps.
because they're less than. Yeah. They're like, and I will tell you, in the church's eyes, they are less than. In the church's eyes, if you didn't serve a mission, people are like, like honestly, it's, yeah, it's a sitch. So, and how many, only you and like very few other people would know. So you could lie. I'm sure they all trump it up. Nobody comes home and says they got 0. Bull. They're not going to say that, even if that's the truth.
We can't use Trump in that context anymore.
Oh,
The name of the
sorry.
God Emperor cannot be used in negative ways.
The God Emperor came up in that Peter Levinda book too, in a way. So
He
whatever.
did, didn't he?
Just saying.
So,
Let alone all my research on Permindex lately took me down a weirdo rabbit hole. Let me tell you what. Yeah.
so what did you think? I mean, we kind of described most of the end where they get lured into this weird area of cages, and I guess extra spoiler alert, but the blonde sort of like ruins his whole plan. Like this is the last time that he's doing this, it seems like. But what did you think about like how the movie fully concluded?
I hated the ending. I absolutely hated it, but I did understand it because they kept
What
bringing
did
up.
you hate about it?
First of all, I think she's dead. Because she's hallucinating, right? Like she hallucinated the butterfly. It just wasn't conclusive enough for me. I like a good, like solid. I don't
Right.
want to think about that. Like that's weird. Like I just want to
Well,
know what happened.
the end is that her
Yeah.
friend like miraculously comes back to life after dying
Yeah.
way earlier in the movie and saves her ass.
So my son said the same to me because we're both medically minded. He said that can't really happen. I said it could happen if she wasn't dead and she was only in shock. And then she died because she gave her last oomph, and then the more blood pressure, because as soon as she hits the floor with a sliced throat, you're going to stop moving. She's on a cold floor. Cold helps blood to cease, coming out. Holding still helps blood to cease coming out. But when she got back up to get him, two things. Number one, the blood would start coming back out and she'd probably die. But number two, did you find it odd that she hit him with a piece of wood with 3 nails in it? Did you catch this at all?
No, I didn't. Yeah. So what? Now there's
Just
like a Hiram
saying.
Abiff, like
I'm just saying.
we can't take you anywhere.
I know. My husband's always like, your brain. I'm like, I know. I have ADHD. What do you want? I have to think of all the ways it goes, and it definitely has served me well often. I'll say that. But for sure, I definitely caught that Trinity symbolism 100%.
Okay.
Like,
So the kind of the dumb part of the end, but yeah, her friend, like you said, her head almost gets chopped off, like her neck gets wide open, and you just assume she's dead. There's no way they're coming back from that. But like in the words of the great Pharaoh Monch, I think it was that he left a little flap of skin so the head wouldn't fall off. So then she gets back up and she takes him out with the 3 nails, the 3 knocks on the head, and now he's gone. And the blonde essentially gets away, and this guy gets shut down. And I guess it was kind of a story of what if, Ted Bundy really had been able to lure these Mormon girls in. Like, what would they have run into? This is sort of like an emphasis on that.
And what was he like too? He was the nice guy. He was the proper guy. He was everything Mr. Reed. That part did crack me up. Oh, you read a lot, Mr. Reed. The way she said that to him too. I was like, you're weird. But anyway, yes, I definitely see a lot of things that were similar with the whole Ted Bundy Mormon missionary girls. And it was a real thing. He actually called them their family. It wasn't a one-off. They baptized him. He was a big part of their church. He was, all of it. So, yeah.
Do you think what are the chances that any current Mormon sees this movie and it rocks their world? Or do you think it's just not? Because I was asking you before, like, what would they take him back? But would this convert anyone?
No, because you know what so much like Freemasons, and you'll understand this, they'll just be like, they don't know. They didn't get high enough. They don't know. They haven't been to the temple. They don't know. That used to be my go-to answer for everything, right? They're just not high enough yet. You don't know. So, I mean, I don't think it would change anybody's theology if they did see it. Those that would continue to watch it are probably already of the core value system, like nothing's getting through this, right? Like, because even when I was a Mormon, I watched all the things. I still like didn't censor my movies. It wasn't that big a deal to me, even with my kids, because I'm like, but we know the truth. Just so you know, we know. Yeah. And so nothing changes it, right? Meh.
Hey, welcome back, 5-Leaf Clover. We got plenty more content on the way. So appreciate you coming back as a member. Thank you, man.
Yes. And I just think that the typical Mormon would just not be phased. Or they'd be so protective, like, oh, I can't watch this. Oh, let me get my pearls. Like, there's 2 kinds of people that you're dealing with. And actually, the pearl clutcher is probably an easier sell because she's probably a little naive,
But I mean, not every Mormon is truly living in an actual bubble, right? There's probably plenty of Mormons that end up watching this movie and are just like, okay, yeah, I get what you're doing there, guys. Like, you're a little bit off. But I wonder too, for someone that doesn't care at all about Mormons, has heard of them, knows they exist, right? They're not aliens, but just never had any reason, like Martinist, right? And when you go off like, oh, these Martinists do this and that, and I'm just like, I mean, I've heard the name Martin before. I know Martinists exist, but I don't really know anything about them, so it kind of just rolls off. So I wonder if someone watching this movie, it's a Hugh Grant horror movie, and these 2 girls get locked in. Like, does the movie get enhanced by knowing about Mormonism and being inside on some of these criticisms? Or do you just watch it and it's just about a creepy guy that trapped 2 girls and the Mormon part is secondary?
Yeah, I don't think most people would think about it like I think about things, for sure not. I think they would just watch it and be like, "Oh, that was cool." "Oh, Mormons are in it. Yay." Cuz like think of how many things they aren't in. Like you said. I mean, they're not aliens, but
This
really
this
it's
is
not.
just exclusion, right?
Yeah, they'll be like,
This is Hollywood's
"Yay, we
version of
finally made
including
it." Yeah.
religious
Maybe
people.
maybe they might know the correlation between if they're at the age group of Ted Bundy, right? Like and the Mormon missionary girls. But otherwise, meh, I don't think.
'Cause
I
'cause I
don't think
guess, I've been withholding any sort of critical review of the movie, but I guess that it doesn't seem like it's that great of a movie. Was it really that scary? There's a lot of points when you can tell the movie's like, "This is the scary part." You're just like, "Eh, okay, I'll give it to you." But I feel like I automatically give it a much higher rating in my mind just because it's so specific about Mormons and he really like digs in, and that's what makes me think that it's a halfway decent movie. Like if I have to give it a number, like 6.5. May if I 7 if I'm like just in a generous mood, but I'm not today. I'm
Right,
not in a generous mood, so I'll give it like a 6.5. But I feel like if you remove the Mormon part and it's just a guy that two girls selling Girl Scout cookies or whatever, selling wrapping
right.
paper. Now it's like a 4.5 or a 5.5.
Yeah, it's not as good. Yeah, it's not as good without that whole piece of the puzzle for sure. And, there's a lot of strange parallels, whether it's supposed to be or not. I would love to know, like, when directors sometimes will be like, this is what I was doing with this. I would love to see that, but I don't think they've ever done anything like that. So, but
There
I
could
think
be
it
a
was fun.
director commentary version in the
Yeah, it would be
future, right?
good. I would love that because then I could see like if is this where you're going with this or no? Like am I pulling out what you're dishing out? I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, I definitely think it's a nod to the situation with Bundy. I also think it's a nod to like the Mormon girls. Maybe they're trying to reinforce like, ooh, scary guys in the world. Be careful. They don't want people trusting anybody ever in
Well, so
Mormonism.
that's a really good point because not to do like the walked uphill in snow when I was like a young kid thing, but like trick or treating and like a Halloween used to be different. It would just be
Mhm.
kids by themselves, usually, unless you were like a baby, unless you were like
Mm,
6, but
yeah,
by yourself, even if you're 9 or 10 or 11, knocking on strangers' doors in the middle of the night. Everyone's wearing masks. Like it's a very dangerous sort of situation
for sure.
relative to 2020, and that's why a lot of the time trick-or-treaters, at least in like the large cities that I've been in, you don't get a lot of trick-or-treaters to the house because they do like trunk or treat where all of
Yep.
the family members and like trusted people, they'll go to like a police station or a school parking lot and pop the trunks and the kids, or they'll go to like a mall, or it's just sort of a completely different, like 3
Yep.
decades has done wonders for the difference between how trick-or-treating operates, to where at a certain point on this trajectory there really won't be a concept of some kids knocking on your door at 8 o'clock and being like, "Hey, give me candy," unless they're like teenagers. Then you're scared of them. Then you're like, "Take everything and don't do anything bad to my house or my car." But
Right.
I
Uh,
wonder, like, is this trajectory something that you foresee for Mormonism too? Do you think there's a certain point when they're like, the world is so unsafe, we can't send these 17-year-olds knocking on doors? Or do the Mormons see a gap in the market? They're like, well, hell, if people are scared to trick or treat, that's all the more for us to go out and knock on doors because no one's doing it.
Well, I'll tell you this to your analyzation of that. The Mormons this year, first time ever, I will tell you, trunk or treats here are a big deal. And they're a big deal with the church because of the things you've said. And I get it. Like, I don't let my girl, she's almost 11. We take her. There's no way there. And when I was young, just like you, I think I was like 8, when we started just hitting the road.
Yeah,
And
if you
so,
were 8, honestly, if you were 8, you were, or like, God help you, if you were in a double digits and you still were going trick or treating with your
yeah, I
parents,
don't even
you would
remember when it
be
happened.
you would be
Yeah, like it just
chastised for the rest of the year.
ever. Yeah, and you just took I know my brother came with us and he was only like 5, so because he was younger than me 3 down. So I'm like, yeah, this was just a thing we did, right? But these trunk or treats came out and a lot of the older people in Utah were really upset about it because they don't go to those and they look forward to Halloween all year because they're like, oh, it's the only time we get to see little kids or whatever if they don't have family and whatnot.
Kind of creepy.
So yeah, this year was the first year the Mormon church told everybody get out there and go trick-or-treating. And I've lived in my neighborhood. It's a super nice neighborhood. It's on the east side. You know, it's nice. And like everybody this year, I ran out of candy. I had to like go find stuff. Like I was like, oh no, we got fruit snacks and chips because I didn't know what to do. I mean, I'd never run out of candy before because they were pushing it for the kids to go. And I've been here for over 6 years. And so
do
it was
you like that, or do you not like that?
I did like it, but to your point, I think what you said about the Mormons taking advantage of that, like, oh, nobody's doing it now, we're gonna do it now. So you know, and oh, who was all those kids that came to see me? Oh, those were the Mormon kids. How nice are they? The Mormons set out the kids because we're sad. You know, I don't think you're wrong on monopolization of things. I don't think you're wrong. So
And it's interesting too, because there was a time before phones and TVs and radios and internet and stuff, right? So the door-to-door salesman, a lot of people opened their door to the guy selling Tupperware or vacuum cleaners or whatever the hell
my
it was they were
husband,
selling.
he always opens the damn door. And I have a sign that says no soliciting because he will buy it. I love you, honey. Sorry. But he will. He'll buy it. And he buys, I think it got out and we're a corner house, but it still happens. Yeah. I mean,
It's the Mormon in them.
I'm like, we are not buying that. And I mean, sometimes they're a good idea, but sometimes I'm like, why are we wasting our time here? This is no.
Well,
but
again,
he's gotten
it's
much
a gap
better.
in the market. If someone's willing to open the door, that's such a rarity on its own that they really dig in. They know that they've got a fish on the hook at that point.
Yep. It's so true.
So
And
if your husband were one of these girls as a missionary, is he getting
probably
into
the dead
Hugh
guy.
Grant's house because he smells a blueberry
He's
candle?
definitely coming in. He's too nice. He would go in anyways. If they were like, could you just help me hang this picture? He's definitely dead. But me too. So oh well. Except I'm like the girl that fought back. And yeah, I don't know.
Do you think this movie could have worked if the genders were switched? If it were two boy missionaries and like it was like an old lady that was pulling this on them?
No, I think it wouldn't have been as scary. You know, I think, and he played it well. Like the creepiest part was when he sang "Creep." When he was singing,
that's
"I'm
right.
a
He
weirdo."
actually sings the movie, the song "Creep."
Yeah, that was so weird. I was
Oh
like,
god.
"Oh my gosh!"
I guess
This
it would
is
destroy the Joseph
true.
Smith connection too, and the whole polygamy thing.
Yeah, creepy. Literally. But overall, like I said, I think Mormons probably might have snuck and watched it anyway, just because they're like, it's more Mormons. Mormons are in it. Yay. Because the only Mormon shows that are out now are very okay, we'll do an example like the Mormon Wives show, the Salt Lake Mormon Wives or something. I can't remember. I don't watch it, but she is royalty of Mormons, and she is Howard Hughes, the guy last name Gay. That's his daughter-in-law. So like these things are planted, right? They're not just like normal people. So they're kind of like Mormon royalty. So I'm sure a lot of people were like, cool, you know, like, oh, look, normal people.
I wonder too,
Maybe.
do you think that Hugh Grant's character in this
Oh.
movie is creepier, or do you think Hugh Grant himself is creepier?
Ugh. I want to say one thing before too. The brunette, her being from Ogden and the other girl being from Salt Lake is kind of a nod that she's kind of trashy because she had the dark hair, and Ogden's just not as looked up to as Salt Lake, just so you guys know. So
Why? What's wrong with Ogden?
it's just kind of like, oh, that's where the bad people live. That's where the gangs are. Like that's not good. Because Ogden used to be really nice, but it definitely had its heyday and fell. So I do know if we do
Well, did the
an
Mormons
episode.
make it not nice, or did the non-Mormons make it not nice?
Well, that all depends on how we want to hook it up with the CIA connects and all the things, because it was the mob that kind of made it not nice. And Al Capone ran Two-Bit Street, is what they used to call it in Ogden, and he ran the prostitution rings and whatnot there. So there's a whole thing. I should go down there and tour it when it gets warm and show you guys, because there's like little opium rooms and stuff like in Seattle, like that you go to. It's weird. That they've kind of preserved and
Well, now
kept.
they just do that on the street corners in Seattle. You don't need
Yeah,
a den. You just do the opium.
Well, for sure. But back in the day, right, these were like prostitution rooms, like the size of a closet, or opium dens. And it was interesting. You wouldn't think Al Capone had any business here in Utah, but he did. So, and part of the places he would spend his time is on Two-Bit Street in Ogden. So, my family's, I told you about my family. My grandpa told me about the whores on Two-Bit Street in Ogden. So, literal. Said those words. I'm like, okay, Grandpa, I'm 12. Could we not talk about that anymore?
Is this where two-bit whore comes from?
I don't even know, but he used to say that. I was like, and my grandpa was, funny enough, he says Ogden was called Little Chicago. My grandpa was from Chicago, so maybe that was why he was like that. I don't know.
Really the name? It's called Two-Bit Street?
It's not anymore. It's called 24th Street. But yes, they used to nickname it Two-Bit Street because you could get what you wanted for 2 bits. So
not in
my
this
grandpa
economy.
my grandpa wouldn't know, but he did. He was in a motorcycle gang. I mean,
Are there Mormon motorcycle gangs?
No, my grandpa was a heathen. No. He was very my grandma was the Mormon, very good Mormon, upstanding Mormon royalty. My grandpa was from the south side of Chicago. It was a weird match. And I think she was just determined to get him baptized, man. And she did, but only 5 years before he died did he ever go to the temple. So, and actually it was funny because he was raised Catholic. And one day he looked at me and he goes, I still believe in the Trinity. Don't tell your grandma. And I was like, don't tell me stuff like that, because I was super Mormon then. I was like, what are you doing? He was.
Where
was
are you
funny.
at on the Trinity now? I don't even know. Do you believe in the Trinity?
I believe in the Trinity. Yeah. Yep.
That's not too pagan for you?
No. Better than the 3 gods. Better than the 3 gods I used to worship, right? Or multi-gods, depending on how much you know.
Because now you got 3 gods, but they're technically 1 god, but you're not allowed to think of it that way sometimes.
Right. Yeah, it's one and all for one and one for all. Right? Maybe that.
The 3 Musketeers is the new god.
There you go. That's the new god. Yeah.
Another tangent, but I don't know if this will come up again, but are Mormons allowed to have motorcycles? And I've just got this image in my mind that like 2 Mormon missionaries pull up outside your house to knock on your door. But they're riding like hogs, like a badass Harley Davidson hog. But then they get off and they take the helmet, and it's just like 2 upright Mormons. I feel like that would sell it even more. I'd be like, damn, what are these guys all about?
No, they would never let them have anything.
If they get up on a scooter or a Vespa or a bike, it's like, guy, come on. Like, I have a car. I'm not going to listen to whatever you've got. But if he rides up on a freaking hog that like wakes up all the dogs in the neighborhood, and it's like super annoying, and then he's like, hey, join Mormonism. I don't know. I feel like those should exist. There should be some biker Mormons that like impress the hell out of you, like just pull some alpha like directly on you.
This comment is good. Jack Mormons would ride a bike. Yeah. No, they would. They would, and they do, but not missionaries. But if they're in a motorcycle gang, it's really funny because, my family were real bikers. Like, I don't mean to be rude, but like sundowners and 1%ers and dangerous people, crazy people. And so like, they'll make their own patches and they're like, we're the ladder riders or some baloney. I don't know. And so, yeah. It would just be something cheeseball like that. And I could see the bikers being like, right.
Is there such thing as Jack Mormon missionaries, or are those 2 things mutually exclusive?
So there's only 2 times in your life you can really be a real missionary, even though they say, oh, everyone's a missionary, right? Like, that's not really true, but yeah, whatever. We're all supposed to be a missionary all the time. But the actual time frame you become a missionary and go away like those girls were away is when you're a teenager. So right out of high school, I think they changed the age to 18, and you go then. If you don't go then, you don't go later. You don't go later. Like, it's now or never type thing. And then when you're old and you're like your kids are raised and everything's done, you can go on a real mission, or you can do what's called ward missionary work, which is also usually old people. So yeah. My grandma was a missionary, but she was a genealogy missionary. And I logged into that damn site and this last week, and I shouldn't have done it. I figured they already knew all the
You know
things.
Ancestry.com?
I did it. I didn't do that. I did it to familysearch.org because I'd already spit in the cup and I already knew all the things, but I was looking for something. So I was like, screw it. Just going to log into the Mormon one because it's familysearch.org. You don't have to be a Mormon to log into it. You can see what they've got on you. See your little family tree. If you've got one already started, somebody's going to baptize your ass.
Familysearch.org. I can just put my
Family
name in.
search.
It'll tell me.
Yep. You have to register. And once you register,
like
it's not, I mean, yeah, whatever.
I don't want to register myself with a Mormon genealogy site. That's silly.
Just don't add anything in there. But if you want to, they already have all my details because I was a Mormon. Plus, I spit in the cup. So I was like, whatever, I'm going to get in there. Friggin' shouldn't have got in there. House of Bourbon. I'm related to Marie Antoinette. All kinds of weird stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get off here. It was not good. Let's see. What did my mom say here?
How accurate do you think those records are? I mean, do you give them a
They're
lot
accurate.
of stock?
They actually say at the bottom, like how many pieces of articles. And my grandma, since my grandma was a genealogy missionary, I would watch her do this. They vet it over like Census Bureau and birth certificates and documents and So yeah, it's very accurate. Yeah. And you've seen where they keep them. All the genealogical records are in the Bat Cave. So they blew the side of a mountain out, and it's, the Bat Cave. So that's what I like to call it.
Yeah, that's Hugh Grant is Joseph Smith. Batman is Joseph Smith. Pretty much they're all Joseph Smith all the way down.
Well, just the Bat Cave. I mean, it is the side of a mountain. It's kind of weird that they did that, actually. And there's only one way in and one way out, and it's heavily guarded. It's called the Granite Genealogical Center, something like that. But it's pretty weird. I'm just saying, there's tunnels.
Iron Mountain. I believe Iron Mountain is like the military's version of what they've got going on, where this is where you store all of the most important documents, so that even after World War III or the sun explodes or whatever, they've still got a way to track you back to the taxes that you owe. I think that's usually how it comes down to.
Yep, that's probably it. That's probably true.
I guess another hypothetical. What do you think? The Mormon temple, the last temple, is burning down, and they're only they only have enough water to put out one room. One room's got the genealogy, and the other room's got the tithings. Which room are they putting the fire out in?
Oh man, I would say the genealogy, but I mean, I would hope the genealogy for what they say they believe in. But I mean,
then they would trade it all. They trade it all to keep the genealogy records intact.
They're very crazy about the genealogy. And
I guess that's a smart choice, because you could turn that back into money, especially if everyone else lost their genealogy records in the same fire.
Well, I mean, they do say that there's some stories there. Like I said, there are certain polygamous sects that say that Jesus had children and that they are the children of him. And Joseph Smith said he was the direct seed and lineage of Jesus Christ. And so I think they would want to prove it. Yeah.
This is Dan Brown, Holy Blood, Holy Grail area.
Well,
right?
But this was a real thing, and there are people that live by this to this day. So, there's a whole sect of polygamy that literally live by this. So, I mean, yeah.
There's probably some Holy Blood, Holy Grailers out there that are living that as if it were the real religion.
Oh, it's a big group. The Kingston group, the Kingstons keep it so pure. They marry cousins and sisters and brothers, and it's a huge group. But funny thing is, they like to come up in politics. They like to give a lot of money to governors and politicians, and
Are their last names always Kingston, or do they have a bunch of other crypto?
No, I think they have some Blackmores and different things in there. But yeah. Well, my mom says paranoid. I'm sure they already have your family on file.
Yeah, well,
you can find out.
I was in the military, so I know that everything's in there, because even when I was in the military, I had access I shouldn't have had access to. This is the dumbest thing. This has probably violated all sorts of laws. I'm lucky I didn't end up in prison for
Oh
this,
my
but
gosh.
I had top secret SCI clearance when I first joined the military, and what that's a fancy way of saying top secret plus access to sensitive personnel information. So I could open up
Ooh.
this like massive worldwide database, put anybody's name in there, and find like their address, their phone number, like all of your current information. And I was just bored one day, and I searched my own name, and I found like 5 other people worldwide, but it was only like 5, maybe 7 at the most. I think it was like 5 people that all had my name, and I freaking emailed every single one of them from my military
Oh my
email
gosh.
address. It was just like, "Hey, I'm a Thomas Gorins too. Like, maybe we're related. Hey, here's my
Oh
info."
my
Like, I was just
gosh.
trying to like figure it out, and I didn't realize that was like a massive violation of all sorts of privacy laws, and I like misused
Oh,
my secret clearance to do all this. But
oops.
this all goes to say that everybody else in my unit, they also had this top secret SCI clearance. They could do the same thing
Mm.
I did. And this was, I have mentioned this a few times, that I was surrounded by Mormons for whatever reason. My direct supervisor was a lieutenant colonel, and he was a Mormon. So I mean, if I was just a bump, like some 18-year-old
Oh
bumpkin
my
looking up my
gosh.
own name, I guarantee you there are hardcore Mormons that are like scraping that database to get everyone's information. So absolutely, my family's everything is probably owned by the Mormons now, just by
Oh
proxy
man.
through the military, right?
Oh man. They find things, there used to be no rules on it, and now there is. Like, it has to be your family, or somebody has to submit it in like a relative. But that all just barely changed. Like, they were just doing mass exodus of everyone, like, for a long time. And actually it was the Jewish people that came and were like, can you stop that now? And they kind of did, but then they did it again, and I think that's when it hit, like, newspapers, and people were not happy that they did Anne Frank, that they did Hitler, they did all these people, and they were like, "Can you just stop it
On
now?
the
Like,
same day, do you
what?"
think they did Hitler and Anne Frank on the same day?
Oh, man, that's horrible. If so, same water and everything, who
Yeah,
knows?
they didn't even wash the water out.
Oh my gosh, this makes you
That's not
sick.
very kosher.
Yeah, not kosher, not kosher. Yeah, not at all. That's scary. But, these places, we know there are many places in the world that have, tunnels and underground systems and all this stuff. And we know that the Mormons are involved in the CIA, and we know all of these things. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they've got their own little whatever underneath. I mean, we know there's tunnels there. And that's how Elon Musk met his good buddy friend, Jared Birchall, that runs his money end of his business, who is not qualified to run it, who does not have the degrees or anything to have that position. But they met at the boring company, like boring holes into the
Mhm.
ground.
Yeah, this is a weird. I mean, I've been talking with my friend Cheney forever. I don't know if you know Cheney. Have you done a show with
I've
Cheney yet?
seen your shows. I would love to, but I've seen your shows with her, and she's great.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we gotta get everyone together. But Cheney has been on this kick and get me on a kick on Howard Hughes a lot too. And it's so hard to not draw all these correlations between Howard Hughes and Elon Musk, not just because of the weird eccentric money sort of like, intelligence thing, but also Howard Hughes had his own unique vantage point from the sky because he was a pilot. He
Mhm.
also did all
You
of
also
these
own those
deep sea
satellites, all these
drilling type
satellites.
thing. What I'm saying is that now, and also just like Howard Hughes mastered the sea and the air, Musk has got these vantage points from his satellites, and he's got these vantage points from SpaceX, and he's got the Boring Company. Like, this dude knows more
Well,
about the
Hughes
Earth than most people do.
Well, Hughes started the satellite companies. Hughes did. If you look at I have the names of them. It's some branch off of NASA where he was involved in, but he started the satellite situation, and I don't know how in depth that is back in that day. But I will say this: Elon's probably pissed because Howard Hughes's IQ was 159 and Elon Musk's is 150. So.
I'm looking forward to the phase
Oh.
of Elon Musk where he's like storing his urine in jars and he's like keeping his toenail clippings.
I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. What did he know that we didn't know? Was he hiding his DNA because he didn't have any kids? Was he doing something with that? Makes you wonder, did he quit cutting his hair and his fingernails and all that stuff because of that? So, yeah, weird.
All right, well,
Creepy.
we'll definitely have to have you on when we do like a Howard Hughes sort
Oh,
of
yeah,
breakdown. That's a fascinating
definitely.
topic.
Love it. Love it so much. Yes, of course, I'm down.
And no, I wasn't security force. Well, I mean, technically, I got reclassified security forces. I joined as a 3COX, and then I had to get cross trained as basically military police. I had to become an MP because then they wanted, because I had that, ironically, that top secret SCI clearance. I was also one of the only people that were allowed deep as you could go into a base. So if someone needed to like repair a freaking pipe somewhere, they needed a top secret SCI clearance escort to make sure that like a person that's allowed to be there to escort the person that's not allowed to be there, where I would just make sure they weren't stealing secrets and they were actually fixing a toilet or whatever the hell. It was like the boring reason of why they reclassified me as security forces. But yeah, that's not what I joined as. But yeah, I found out the hard way that you don't really get to keep the job that you sign up for. You just do whatever the hell they tell you to do. In retrospect, it seems obvious, but to a 16-year-old, it didn't seem as obvious.
And I have to tell you, Jeremy, he's an ex-mo. He's a mo. I don't know if he's an ex yet, but
You guys are
anyway,
everywhere.
we're everywhere. Ah! Jeremy's awesome. He sends me information sometimes, and he sends me little clips and whatnot. So I appreciate him. So, and Cindy is my mom. Hi, Mom.
Oh, shout out Cindy. I'll respond to Cindy then too. Cindy said,
"There's my husband." The whole family's here today. Hi, baby.
Family. These Mormons just show up and crawl out of the woodwork. It's crazy.
Yeah, we bring our own crowd.
What do you believe? I don't know. I believe I'm a lifelong recovering Catholic, which means that I started out.
You'll
Catholic
always be Catholic.
And the pendulum swung all the way over to atheism, and I stuck there for a while, and now it's like swinging back, but I don't know where it's going to hit. I just know that it's swinging backwards. It might be Mormonism.
No.
And I would act, if it ever were Mormonism, I would blame you partly for making it sound so cool. Because all the reasons.
Well, then I better get invited to your baptism. It's the one time I'll set foot in a church. How about that? A Mormon church.
So, this is the first show of 2025. We started this last year. We've only been doing this for about a year now. So what do you see in store for Monthly Mormon Monday? Any like special requests or?
Well, Mormonism is the gift that keeps on giving. I will say, I do think we need to do a Mormon mob too because of the connects I'm making, but I'm not there yet with Permandex and JFK and RFK, and it might have to need 2 Mondays to do it because it's crazy. And we definitely should do one which would be involved in that on the 9. You know what I'm talking about, the 9, the seance of the 9. Because it hooks to Lee Harvey Oswald. It's very in the DuPonts. It's very strange. You've read
That's
Lavenda's
also
book.
Out of Peter Lavenda's book too, right?
Yeah, multiple books, but Lavenda did it best. I will give Lavenda that credit for sure. And that book is great. So I think we should do one on that. I don't know.
Have we burned all of the bridges with like getting actual Mormons on this show yet?
Maybe Jeremy would come on someday.
But you said Jeremy's an Exmo.
He's got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. We'll see.
Well, but do you think we can get any like
true blue Mormons? Oh my God.
True blue Mormons on here?
I'm
I'm not, just for the record, I don't feel like I've ever been, nor would I have any intention to be antagonistic towards Mormons. Even when I was younger, even when I saw the South Park episodes and stuff, just because at that point, I mean, it was funny and you're laughing and like dum da dum dum dum, they're talking about the whole Joseph Mormon Smith thing. But I'm just like, I mean, I go to church on Sundays and they literally tell me I'm eating the flesh of my God and drinking his blood. So I never felt like I was standing on a good foot to be like, oh, what you guys are talking about is way crazy. Like what I was doing seemed crazy and everyone else also thought it was crazy that wasn't Catholic.
Well,
so
the Mormons believe that actually, too. You know, they believe that exact
Really?
same thing.
That Mormons
Yes.
believe in transubstantiation?
Yep. Yep.
Do they do
I'll
trans?
find the prayer for the sacrament, but they absolutely say it is his blood
Do
and
they
his
do
flesh.
it? Do Mormons turn
Mhm.
crackers into flesh and eat it?
They use bread and they use water. Yep.
Well, yeah, potato.
Yep. Absolutely.
And
Yep.
oh yeah, I guess you would have to
Absolutely.
use water. Can you use fruit juice?
They don't do it. Yeah.
Because it's
No.
supposed to
But
look like, it's literally supposed to look like blood.
yeah, but they're Mormon. So, you know.
Okay.
I mean, well, yeah, no, it's just one of those things where they won't bend on alcohol whatsoever, which is whatever. It's fine. They just let them go to the doctor and get all the Xanax they want. So that's fine. As long as it's a prescription, they're good to go because they
Okay.
own all the labs and
Now
they own
that
everywhere. Yeah.
this is a religion that I think that we could maybe form, that you replace crackers with Xanax and you keep the wine, but
I
now the
mean,
body and the blood is just a Xanax and a shot of
listen,
wine.
since I've met you, it's been 1 year. I know 3 people that have started churches. We're not making more churches. I met you right before Zertis, and I said, "I think he's gonna start a church," and you were like, "That's
X church.
funny." Yeah, and then he did. And then my friend Ex-Mojo started a church, the Church of Korihor. And so it's an atheist church, but you know, he's atheist. We love him still. He is doing a drive right now for blankets for the cold in Utah, and it's really cold here right now, you guys. It's like 20 degrees out there. So he has a big heart with that. If anybody can donate, the barcodes are on my Instagram and on my Twitter and all the things. So yeah.
And I'm assuming the third is Jacob.
Yes. Sorry. I should have finished my thought. Yes.
So yeah,
So
I mean, I guess maybe that's the goal, is that we pump that number up. That before the end of this year, we have 4 guests on that
oh boy.
all start their own
Start
churches.
churches. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think it would be also cool to do an episode on the sect that I told you does believe the whole Mary Magdalene blood of Jesus stuff, because it's real. I know Fritz was Fritz, but I mean, we got to cover it because people are living by it, you know.
Okay,
I don't know.
so that sect, the 9 Martinists, Howard Hughes, which might
More
bleed
Howard Hughes.
into
Yes.
Mob Part
JFK. It's
2.
gonna go to JFK RFK for sure. Yep.
Oh, there's a JFK
Yes.
RFK connection here too.
100%.
Okay,
It did.
honestly, that one I can get behind, because this year I'm hoping to get more progress on my JFK graphic novel that I've been working on forever. But I've got, it's going to be 200-page comic. It's massive.
Ooh.
So yeah,
Cool.
it's time to brush off all my JFK research and start
Do
getting
you
into that.
know anyone that will do a JFK like breakdown, like an author with us or something?
Absolutely, yeah. I know.
Yeah.
My friend Eric Hunley, he has a show that he's been doing for the last year or 2 that breaks down all the JFK and his
Oh, he'll know
one of
then.
the
Yeah.
people that he does a podcast. I don't have the names off the top of my head, but yeah, I've got a number of people that are basically experts in the JFK topic. So I would love,
Perfect.
one of those things that everyone should know, but it's also very overwhelming, because I believe it's almost like trying to find the ineffable name of God. Like, you can literally spend your entire life from from a 12-year-old all the way to 82 and probably never really get to the bottom of it. And I think the
It's
JFK
so
assassination is one of those things.
well, and especially we should be covering it this year because, you know, our boy Trump gets, you know, he's never going to release those papers with Roy Cohn being on the head of Permandex, which has been labeled as, you know, him and Mayhew
Have
have
you
been
seen the Roy
totally.
Cohn movie? Have you seen The
Oh,
Apprentice?
oh yes. And the better, Where's My Roy Cohn biography?
Right. That
I
was like an
just,
HBO documentary or
yeah,
something.
yeah. It's just strange when you see these things and knowing what you know, where he says, okay, I'm going to run with RFK Jr. Plus I'm going to release the JFK docs. And then I'm just little dumb me, like doing my other research over here and didn't even mean to find it. So what are the people finding that do mean to find it? You know, like, he's not releasing crap. There's no way he can. It's going to implicate him. Not that he did anything, but like his people, you know. I don't know that he can do that. He was way too close to the
I don't
fire.
know though, because they all in The Apprentice and in the Roy Cohn movie, but in The Apprentice, they really show that Trump's way of proving himself to Roy Cohn was to show how easily he just flicked him to the curb. That was just like, I don't even want
Oh,
to
it was
breathe the
sad.
same air as you because I don't want to get sick. But I think he did it in a way that was showing him like, I'm no longer a codependent of you. I'm no longer a lapdog. The way that Trump shows that the student has surpassed the master was by just like casting him off to the side. So there might be part of Trump revealing those papers almost as like an FU to the
Hmm.
Bushonian Clintonian cabal, right? Of being like, hey,
Oh,
you let me in the
definitely
club,
Bush.
and
Yeah.
now I'm just gonna throw you guys under the bus. Because I think throwing Bush
Mm.
under the bus means throwing Clinton under the bus, but like that whole entire house of cards falls a little bit. But I don't think that it would be done in a here's something for you, America. It would all just be here's me taking down these other political dynasties, which he sees as a threat because now he's going to be the next political dynasty.
It makes you wonder. It makes one wonder. I mean, I don't know. Trump to me, you said Elon to you is Howard Hughes to me. It's Trump, a useful billionaire. I'm just like, dude, like, I mean, maybe they both are, right? But who's running who? Who even knows? Jeremy did bring up the Priory of Sion. That would be a good episode
Well,
as well.
that holy blood, holy grail, that's all Priory of
Mhm.
Sion, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But the whole thing, not just what I was talking about with the polygamous sect, right? So more,
Well, how
it would be
does
more.
Priory of Sion cross over into Mormonism directly, or is it just because Joseph Smith also claimed lineage with Jesus, and that's what they share in common?
That's what I need to look more because at this point, all I know is the polygamy aspect of it, right? Like these certain people that live this way. So I have to see it on the crossover and see if it does or if it warrants two shows or if it'll be just a blip. Who knows?
Okay,
But
bet.
interesting. What about you? Anything you want to learn about on
I mean,
Mormon?
if I hit the lottery, I would say live stream from Salt Lake City, for
That'd be
sure.
cool. That'd be way
But
cool.
yeah, I don't know. I don't
You should
know. I
you
would
should fly out here when they're gonna get ready to dedicate that temple if you
That's
can
what I'm
get
saying. I would love
tickets.
to. I would love to have the resources to do a little bit of jet setting. This is so
That'd
far.
be
This is like
cool.
the out of all of the years in the last 3 decades. This year and last year, as like I've had the least amount of free time and money to travel.
Oh,
So
man.
I don't know how it'll work. I want to.
Oh,
That's definitely at the top of my bucket list. I'd love to go
yeah.
out to the West Coast, see Andreas for his birthday, go up to
Be
Salt Lake
awesome.
City, cause some hell there, so that I'm not invited back. Like all of the things. I want to go back to Salem
You
again.
you owe me we gotta have a coffee in Utah with the ex-Mormon.
Hey, and your husband's gonna show
Or a
me all
drink.
of the different
Yeah,
beers and stuff. What's
yeah.
the day that Mormons
Oh, yeah, the
co-opted?
24th of July, Pine Beer Day. I mean,
Pioneer
Pioneer
Day. Yeah.
Day. Yeah, he totally would. He loves it. Yeah, and he loves your show. He's always on the lives. You can see all the time, so he would love that. It'd be fun. I think it'd be fun.
All
So,
right,
yeah, it
let's
would
do
be
it. Maybe
awesome if
maybe
we could.
Dallas. Let's just throw it out there. Dealey Plaza. That would be a fun one to do.
Oh, that'd be cool. And what about the Branch Davidians might have a little piece of Mormon in them or cultiness. We could look
Yeah,
at that
well, I
too.
mean, yeah, wait, you mean Waco, Texas? Although from what I
Mhm.
understand, it's just a patch of land now, and it's kind of not even in like anywhere
Oh, they
cool
destroy
around
like it's
there. So
all
you
oh,
gotta be
boring.
you gotta be hardcore to actually make the trek to Waco just to look at,
To
an
look
empty
at
patch of
dirt.
land. But also
Yeah.
welcome to literally every single blacklist that the government has now. Because if you're that hardcore that you're gonna
Oh,
go and like
man.
kiss the dirt at Waco, then you're definitely on a list.
Yeah, I think we're already on a list. To be honest, let's I think we're on
Yeah,
a
I get randomly checked at every single checkpoint I've ever gone through in the last 3 decades.
yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm on a
Yep.
list.
I think we're on lists. It's fine. It is what it is. What do you do? What do you do with that part of it? But whatever. I don't break any laws. Bring it. It's fine.
All right, well, I guess
Yeah,
that's the
go to
goal. I don't.
Utah.
It's the most unrealistic goal, but the goal is like a nationwide tour. We just
There you
do it from
go.
all the
That'd be
places.
awesome. Holy cow. Yeah, that would be fun. Well, I'm definitely down. I think we'll never run out of things to talk about with Mormons. They're just the gift, like I said, the gift that keeps on giving. They're very strange. The way they come up in things is like JFK. It always comes up. Like every time you turn around, right? It's JFK. That's how I feel about the Mormons. I'm like, what are they doing here? Why are they here? Right? Like, who knows?
It's
Whatever.
like finding the Weinstein's name at the end of a movie.
I'm serious. It's so much. I'm like, all right, that's fine. Oh, they say whatever we do, it'll be great. That's from my mom. So I think I like the show. It's fun. I enjoy it.
All right, well, we're gonna keep it going. No plans on slowing down at all. So, and in fact, I think that we are at least on track to do this every other week
Yes.
now. So it's not even monthly; it's bi-weekly Mormon Wednesday, which doesn't have the same ring to it as monthly Mormon Monday. So the name
No, we got to
changes,
keep the
schedule,
name.
or
Yeah,
the name stays, the schedule changes.
that's right. We can't change it. It's a good name. We should do a Rotary Club one too. I did get the go from Justin to go ahead and use his slides. So if he's too busy to come on, then not his actual slides, but his information. I don't want to jack his stuff without asking. So yeah, even though it's public, Rotary Club really ties in. It'd be fun with you, not necessarily on a Mormon one, but I'm sure you've done something on Opus Day. So
My both of my grandparents were Opus Dei.
see, that one's fascinating. Anything with the secrets is pretty fascinating.
That
In my
that one
opinion.
is so secret that I didn't even know that until they both passed.
You're
And then
like,
I
what is
found out
this?
it was Opus Dei.
Ah! I didn't know my grandma was the president of the Elks, Lady Elks, until she passed away, and that she was super involved in like the Boys and Girl Scouts and all this stuff. And I was like, she didn't even like kids that much. Wow. Must have been a calling through the Lady Elks.
I believe the only reason that my family even really caught on to them being an Opus Dei is because when they passed, it was like, well, where's all this? Why is all this money going to the church? And the more you look
Oh,
into it, because part of Opus Dei is that you give significant tithings, way more than a normal parishioner would, and that's one of the dead giveaways that you start peeling back the layers, and it's like, oh, there's like a whole thing here.
uh-oh. Oh, that
So
sounds
yeah, well,
like
maybe we'll do like an expose on my own family at some point.
yeah, well, don't feel bad. Like I said, how suburban. I talked to one of my friends and I was like telling him, he's like, we should do an episode on this. This is great. I'm like, no. So I get it. Yeah, why not? Who
All right, we're
cares?
doing that.
Right?
This year we're blowing our family lines up online.
Who
We're gonna
cares?
dox the
Yeah.
hell out of them.
Marie Antoinette, here I come, girl. Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
make your
was
name
shocked.
famous.
Oh my gosh. I was like, oh, what? What is happening here? Why is this so? But hey, I caught a cool one. I am the 12th cousin of Elvis Presley. That was kind of cool. And about 20 presidents. So that was fun. I was like, well, who's the Freemason in my family? I want to know who started this, not the
You're
Mormon one,
basically
like the real
Illuminati at
one,
that point.
like the real one. Yeah, like all of them, all the presidents. I was like, how many is this? Good Lord. It is what it is. Can't do anything about it.
One of the benefits of being a Mormon is that you get to cast a huge net when it comes to genealogy.
That's true. Actually, they got in deep crap from Howard Hughes for starting their own company just to computerize their genealogy, and he shut it down. And they sent a CIA FOIA doc requesting all of the Reich's stuff from them so they could have it to computerize as well. So that tells you what levels they'll go to, right?
Okay, so we'll add to that list too CIA and Mormonism. I think that would
Oh,
be a good one.
that's a big one. Big. And, the NSA is here. I mean, we've got all kinds of things out in
Okay,
Utah.
so yeah, we can easily do a CIA Mormonism, a mob Mormonism, and JFK and Mormonism, and all that can dovetail into Howard Hughes
Yes.
in a bunch of different ways.
Yep. That sounds fun. And your friend can maybe come if she's available. That'd be awesome.
All right, sweet. Well,
I know she's not a Mormon, but neither are you. So
well, not yet.
we can call her
never too
Cheney
late.
Mo. Cheney Mo.
It's never.
You're
I don't
amazing.
think that she'd be open to Mormonism, but I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone's motivations and stuff. I mean, I might be open to it. So
Now. All right, you guys. Well, thanks for coming on. Oh, Dr. Pepper Museum. There you go. That's cool.
There you go. Yeah,
I didn't know
that's
that.
what you tell the FBI when they pull you over. Like, oh, I'm just here for the
Dr.
Dr.
Pepper Museum. That's right. That's right. They already know who we are. They're going to be like, listen, Marie Antoinette Jr., you're not fooling anyone.
You've got a book of the Turner Diaries, but it has like
Oh
a
my
Dr. Pepper
gosh.
bookmark in it.
You're like, no, we just really like it. Okay.
All right.
boy.
Well, thank you. Another monthly Mormon Monday in the books. I'm looking forward to the next one. You know, everyone tell your friends and show up to the next one. And happy 2025.
That's right. Bye.